Welcome to Infinite Novel Audio. If you love epic fantasy, thrilling adventures, and immersive audiobook stories, you're in the right place. Before we begin, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Also, be sure to check out my other channel, AI Otaku Studio, for even more amazing AI powered and anime inspired content.
Chapter 1 Kyan Zunji's Tomb. Spirit City. In front of a magnificent cemetery, a youth squatted on the ground, his fingers tracing the engraved characters on the gravestone. The former Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall. Tusk, this doesn't look like the Douluo Hall. Jai stood up. At 12 years old, his height was already approaching 1.8 meters, and his grey cloth garments were stained with mud from his escape. That old fellow Flender is probably still in the casino, getting grabbed by the collar and asked for money. 6 years. Ever since the day of his awakening at age 6, Flender had stuck to him like a plaster. Twin spirits, innate level 20 spirit power. The first spirit, Void, materialized space, ignoring defense and invincible in close combat. The second spirit, She, conceptual control, time stillness, and karma reversal. Every single one exceeded the scope of existing spirits. When Flender first came looking for him, he said with a smile, "Shrek only recruits monsters," and the meaning behind his words was very clear. "You, this monster, should belong to me." Jai refused on the spot. Fortunately, the news of his innate level 20 spirit power was suppressed by Flender, preventing that deacon from reporting it to Spirit Hall. As a transmigration, wouldn't he know what kind of virtues those people in Shrek had? Dai Mubai relied on his identity as a prince to ruin girls outside the academy. Ma Hongzhen's evil fire would flare up, and he wouldn't even spare the chickens in the village, and Oscar's spirit sausage was utterly disgusting. As for Flender and Yu Xiaorogang, one was a profiteering merchant who drilled into the eyes of money, and the other was a trash who plagiarized theories and performed miserably in actual combat. Teach him in a place like this. It was just like putting a top student into a psychiatric hospital. Thus that very night, Jai ran away. The first time he ran, he made it 5 miles out of the village before Flender dropped from the sky and smilingly carried him back. The second time he ran, he burrowed into the mountains for 2 days. Flender squatted at the cave entrance waiting for him for a day and a night, and finally came out when he couldn't stand the hunger anymore, only to be carried back again. The third time he used his spirit. His first spirit, Void, condensed spatial power into a translucent long sword. Wherever the blade passed, the air tore open the Void realm. Flender's first injury was being grazed on the shoulder by this sword, and as a result, that old immortal's eyes became even brighter. He went crazy wanting to take Jai as a disciple. Jai had thought about killing Flender. But a 7th ring was still a 7th ring. Being able to injure someone and being able to kill them were 2 different matters. With time paused for 2 seconds, he could stab at most 3 swords. After the 3 swords, Flender would react, activate his owl's spirit, and he wouldn't be able to escape anywhere in the sky or on Earth. Therefore, he could only wait for an opportunity. Half a month ago, he finally waited for it. He lured Flender to the largest casino in Soto City and used She to control the dice results, winning 23 games in a row. Flender's eyeballs were almost falling into the pile of gold coins, and his entire person was so excited that his hands were shaking. Jai found an excuse to go to the bathroom and took the opportunity to sneak out of the casino. When he walked to the entrance of the casino, he turned back and shouted, "Table number 6, that middle-aged man with eagle eyes and glasses is cheating." As soon as these words came out, the gamblers at table number 6 instantly blew up. They had long found this guy, who had won dozens of games in a row, unpleasing to the eye, and 7 or 8 people directly overturned the table and pounced on him. "Damn it, how dare you cheat, I'll fucking screw you to death." No wonder this old fogey kept winning, it turns out he's been cheating all along. "Brothers, kill him, this guy doesn't look like a good thing at first glance." "Fuck your mother, hurry up and return my money." Later, Flender was completely dumbfounded, getting violently beaten by a group of people just like that, and he couldn't even fight back using spirit power. Spirit masters must not attack ordinary people. This was an iron law. As for what happened afterwards, Jai didn't know either. Anyway, he had already escaped the madman's line of sight. Jai let out a deep breath. Refreshing. But he didn't expect that he had accidentally run to the cemetery of the former Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, Kyan Zunji. The original work had never introduced this. Compared to those people in Shrek, those envies and elders of Spirit Hall, aside from that crazy woman Bibai Dong, which one of them wasn't wholeheartedly devoted to cultivate. Gold Crocodile Douluo and Kyan Dalu, what these people pursued all their lives was the peak of spirit power, and they never engaged in those roundabout schemes. Bibi Dong excluded. That woman had more scheming thoughts than a hornet's nest. Therefore, holding on to curiosity, Jai activated his second spirit, Shi, bypassed the guards and ran straight in. The interior of the cemetery was simpler than Jai had imagined. There were no roundabout tomb tunnels, no mechanism traps, just a circular grand hall. The dome was painted with angel patterns, and around it stood over a dozen angel statues carved from white marble, with wings spread, holding long swords, and their lowered gazes looking at the coffin right in the center. The coffin was golden, pure gold, covered with angel patterns and the emblem of Spirit Hall. So wealthy. Just as these two words popped out of Jai's mind, footsteps sounded at the entrance. He sidestepped and hid behind the nearest angel statue, his grey cloth garments pressing against the ice-cold stone statue as he held his breath. The footsteps were very light, quickly arriving before the tomb. Jai stealthily poked out half of his head. A blonde woman stood before the coffin. She wore a white short skirt trimmed with gold, and her hair was of a pure golden color. Her skin was very fair, fairer than any woman Jai had ever seen. Her azure blue eyes looked at the coffin, her eyelashes very long. Jai froze for a second. He had undergone transmigration for 12 years and had seen quite a few women. Widow Lee at the village entrance, Auntie Wang, who sold baked sesame cakes next to Shrek, and the dancers in Soto City. Not a single one of them could compare to the one before him. Indeed, there was no comparison. "Father, your daughter has come to see you." The blonde woman spoke, her voice carrying a hint of hoarseness. Jai's brain buzzed. "Father, don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio." Kyan Zunji's daughter. Kyan Rengsu. Didn't she run off to be an undercover agent in the Heaven Du Empire? Why did she run here? Jai stared at her face and took another look. She was indeed beautiful, but more importantly, there was something very cold on that face, an indifference that exuded from her very bones. No wonder she could disguise herself as a man for so many years. Kyan Rengsu's hand brushed across the edge of the golden coffin, falling silent for a few seconds. The enmity of murdering a father, your daughter will exact revenge for sooner or later. That woman is still sitting in the position of Supreme Pontiff, but she won't be sitting there much longer. Jai could tell that that woman naturally referred to Bibai Dong. Good grief, the mother-daughter relationship was indeed, as the original work described, as bad as enemies. Kyan Rengsu said a few more words, her voice growing lower and lower until it was almost inaudible at the end. Jai was pricking up his ears to listen hard when the sole of his foot stepped on a loose floor tile. A very light sound of click. Kyan Rengsu's voice stopped. Jai's heart stopped as well. "It's over." Kyan Rengsu turned around, her azure blue eyes sweeping across every single angel statue. "Who is there? Come out." Jai was still hesitating when Kyan Rengsu's gaze had already locked onto the statue where he was hiding. Their eyes met. The scene was very quiet. Jai walked out from behind the statue and patted the dust off his sleeves. "If I said I was just passing by, would you believe me?" Kyan Rengsu stared at him. Grey coarse cloth clothes, wearing an iron grey mask on his face, revealing only his eyes and mouth. Not short in height, but his physique clearly showed he was a youth. Chapter 2, Brought Back to the Hall of Elders by Kyan Rengsu. Passing by, Kyan Rengsu's voice turned cold. "This is the forbidden land of Spirit Hall, and outsiders who trespass will die. I didn't trespass, I'm paying my respects. Paying respects? I have long admired the former Supreme Pontiff, Kyan Zunji. Today, passing by Spirit City, I deliberately came to pay homage. Kyan Renxu's eyes narrowed. You wear a mask to pay your respects. I'm ugly, I'm afraid of scaring people. You're wearing these tattered clothes. Can't poor people have faith? You're 12 years old. Jaiyi was stunned for a moment. How could you tell? Kyan Renxu did not answer. Her hand raised, golden light gathered in her palm, and a long sword slowly emerged. The sword body was entirely golden, the hilt was shaped like an angel spreading its wings, and the blade flowed with a faint radiance. Angelic sacred sword. A grave-robbing little thief, Kyan Renxu's tone was very calm. Saying so much nonsense, do you want to stall for time and wait for your accomplices? Jaiyi glanced at that sword, and then at Kyan Renxu's face. Spirit Emperor. In the original work, Kyan Renxu was around the early 6-ring level at this time, in the early 60s. He was a 4-ring level 42, lagging behind by 2 major ranks. I'm really not a grave robber. Jaiyi raised his hands, signaling that he had no malicious intent. If I were a grave robber before you came in just now, I should have pried open the coffin lid, and then when you came in, you should have just happened to see me stuffing gold into my pocket. That's what you call grave robbing. I am completely clean, haven't taken a thing, at most it's just trespassing. Kyan Renxu's hand, holding the sword, paused for a moment. She probably didn't expect this masked little thief to be able to spout such a set of logic. Trespassing is also a capital crime. Are the rules of your spirit hall so strict? This is my home, I have the final say. Jaiyi shut his mouth. There was no way to refute these words. Kyan Renxu didn't want to talk nonsense anymore either. The angelic sacred sword raised, its tip pointing at Jaiyi. The spirit power of a 6-ring spirit emperor pressed over, stirring up a ripple. Jaiyi's clothes were blown backward, and the mask also fell from his face, revealing the youth's astonishing good looks. His facial features had deep contours, his skin was very white, and his lines were clean. At 12 years old, his face still carried a bit of lingering youthful aura. Kyan Renxu looked at that face and was stunned for a moment. She had never seen such a handsome boy before. This person was the first. But it was only a momentary daze. The next second, the tip of the angelic sacred sword pushed forward another 2 inches, less than a fist's distance from Jaiyi's throat. Come back with me to accept punishment, or die here. Kyan Renxu's voice was very cold, showing not a shred of mercy. Jaiyi lowered his head to look at that golden sword, and then raised his head to look at Kyan Renxu's face. Why are you people so stubborn? I already said I was just passing by. Stubborn? It means narrow-minded, sticking rigidly to principles, and not knowing how to be flexible. Kyan Renxu's eyes narrowed, and golden spots of light began to condense on the sword tip. Jaiyi felt that sharp spirit power. A 6-ring spirit emperor in the 60s, if they really fought, with him being a 4-ring level 42, even with the heaven-defying traits of his spirit, his chances of winning were less than 30%. Moreover, this was Spirit City, their base camp. Beat the young and the old come, beat the old and the even older come. In the end, once that level 99 Kyan Dalu came out, he wouldn't even have a chance to run. Having just gone to such great lengths to escape from Flender, he turns around and gets hunted down by Spirit Hall again. Jaiyi sighed in his heart. Such a hard life. Forget it. I'll go back with you. Kyan Renxu stared at him for 2 seconds, seemingly judging whether he was playing tricks. Put the mask on. Jaiyi bent down to pick up the iron-grey mask on the ground and fastened it back onto his face. Kyan Renxu turned and walked outward. The angelic sacred sword was not put away. She just held it in her hand like that, its golden tip hanging toward the ground. Jaiyi followed behind her, maintaining a distance of 3 steps. When walking out of the tomb's main gate, a row of guards in white stood at the entrance. Seeing Kyan Renxu come out, they all simultaneously knelt on one knee. Greetings, young lord. Kyan Rengshu ignored them and walked straight ahead. Jai followed behind her and walked out as well. The guards raised their heads and saw a grey-clothed, masked youth following behind the young lord. Everyone's eyes widened a circle simultaneously. What is the situation? When did this person go in? They had guarded for a whole day without letting even a fly in. How did this person appear inside? One guard instinctively pressed his hand onto the sword hilt, but after glancing at Kyan Rengshu's back, he let go again. The person brought out by the young lord should be fine, right? When Kyan Rengshu walked past that group of guards, her footsteps paused for a moment, and she tilted her head to sweep a glance. Change a batch of people to be on duty. Yes. No one dared to ask why. When Jai passed by, he shrugged at the nearest guard. Don't be nervous, I walked in openly through the main entrance. The guard's expression became even uglier. Kyan Rengshu walked in front, her pace neither fast nor slow. Jai followed behind, looking around as he walked. Soon the two entered Spirit Hall. This place was even more grand than he had imagined. The buildings were mostly built of white stone, the walls were carved with intricate reliefs, and every few steps there was a huge stone pillar, with blue spirit power flames burning on top of the pillars. The patrol teams encountered along the way saw Kyan Rengshu, all knelt on one knee, not even daring to raise their heads. Jai felt a bit guilty in his heart. It's just that he didn't know what kind of person that angel Douluo Dalu was. In the original work, this old man didn't appear much. In his impression, he was an old man who would risk everything for his granddaughter. As for his strength, a level 99 Super Douluo, one of the few surviving limit Douluos in the world. Jai calculated in his heart. If Kyan Dalu was also an unreasonable old madman, then he would accept his bad luck and figure out a way to run again. Or just get himself killed. If he was a normal person, then staying in Spirit Hall for a period of time wasn't completely unacceptable. Anyway, it was better than Shrek. Kyan Rengshu suddenly stopped her footsteps. Jai almost bumped into her, fortunately braking in time. We've arrived. Jai raised his head. In front of him was a huge hall, with 3 large characters carved on the lintel. Hall of Elders. The hall doors were wide open, and the sound of people talking came from inside. Kyan Rengshu strode inside. Jai took a deep breath and followed. The Hall of Elders was originally quite lively. Lion Douluo was holding a cup of tea and bragging with Guangling Douluo, talking about how he single-handedly fought 3 10,000-year spirit beasts back in the day. Guangling Douluo was sitting in a chair cracking melon seeds, with an expression of "you keep bragging, I'm listening to you brag." Kingluan Douluo was leaning against a pillar resting his eyes, and the brothers Kyanjun and Zhangmo were playing chess. As soon as Kyan Rengshu entered, the atmosphere immediately changed. Little niece Zhu, Lion Douluo was the first to speak, his voice so loud that the whole hall was shaking. Didn't you go to sweep your father's tomb today? You came back so fast. Kyan Rengshu nodded slightly. Chapter 3. He is the person who robbed my father's tomb. Grandpa Lion. Xiroxu Kingluan Douluo opened his eyes and smiled at her. Grandpa crested. Guangling Douluo got up from his chair and patted the melon seed shells off his hands. Xiroxu, your grandfather was just talking about you, saying that you ran all the way back from afar without going to see him first. Naturally, I came to see Grandpa after sweeping my father's tomb. Kyan Rengshu paused. Grandpa Guangling, you have melon seed shells on the corner of your mouth. Guangling Douluo hurriedly wiped his face. Thousand Jun Douluo put down his chess piece and looked up at Kyan Rengshu. Xiroxu, you've lost weight again. Grandpa Thousand Jun, I haven't lost weight. Demon Douluo burst out laughing. Brother, every time you see Xiroxu you say she's lost weight. The last time she came back you said she lost weight too, but when she weighed herself, she gained 5 catties. Thousand Jun Douluo glared at him. You talk too much. Kyan Rengshu's lips curved slightly. Although the arc was very small, she was indeed smiling. Jai Yi stood 3 steps behind her, watching this scene with some surprise in his heart. He had thought that the elders of Spirit Hall were all those high and mighty, icy-cold old freaks. He didn't expect the style to be like this. Demon Douluo was the first person to notice Jai Yi. He walked straight over, looked up and down at the grey-robed masked youth, and then swaggeringly reached out his arm to directly wrap it around Jai Yi's shoulder. "Yo, who is this little guy?" Demon Douluo turned his head to look at Kyan Rengsu. Quite handsome too, even though he's wearing a mask. You can tell he's a handsome lad just from his eyebrows and eyes. "Xiroxu, when did you make friends with this little buddy?" Jai Yi was hugged so tightly by him that he could barely breathe, and he was just about to open his mouth to introduce himself. Kyan Rengsu's voice came over first. "He is the person who robbed my father's tomb." Demon Douluo's hand, which was wrapped around Jai Yi's shoulder, stiffened. Their entire hall of elders instantly fell silent. Lion Douluo, Guangling Douluo, Qingluan Douluo, and Thousand Jun Douluo all looked at Jai Yi simultaneously. Demon Douluo slowly lowered his head and glanced at Jai Yi, whom he was holding. The smile on the corner of his mouth was still hanging there, but it had completely frozen. "And what?" "The person who robbed my father's tomb," Kyan Rengsu repeated in a calm tone. Demon Douluo let go of his hand and took a step back. He re-examined Jai Yi from top to bottom and from bottom to top. "You kid grave robbing," Demon Douluo's voice went out of tune. "And you even robbed the tomb of the former Supreme Pontiff of my Spirit Hall. You've got some nerve." Jai Yi opened his mouth. "If I said I was just passing by, would you believe it?" Passing by, Lion Douluo strode over, his tall body blocking in front of Jai Yi like a wall. "Can you pass by right into the inside of a mausoleum?" "I got lost." "Lost?" Guangling Douluo also leaned in, tilting his head to look at Jai Yi. "Couldn't you see such a big sign for the forbidden land of Spirit Hall?" "I didn't pay attention." Jai Yi felt so aggrieved inside. He really didn't rob a tomb. He didn't even touch the coffin lid. But these few elders obviously wouldn't doubt Kyan Rengsu's words. Since Kyan Rengsu said it was grave robbing, then it was grave robbing. No evidence needed, no interrogation needed, no need to go through any procedures. Qingluan Douluo walked over and looked down at Jai Yi. His gaze wasn't fierce, but that sense of oppression was more uncomfortable than fierceness. "What Xiroxu says cannot be false." Thousand Jun Douluo also stood up, standing to the left and right alongside Demon Douluo. The two brothers were as tacitly coordinated as one person. The 5 elders surrounded Jai Yi in the middle. Not a single one released a spirit ring, and not a single one summoned their spirit. But that invisible pressure had already made cold sweat break out on Jai Yi's back. Titled Douluo. 5 titled Douluos. Any single one pulled out at random could pin him to the ground and rub his face in it. Jai Yi took a deep breath. "I didn't rob a tomb." No one paid attention to him. "I'm being serious." Still no one paid attention to him. "Do the people of your spirit hall not listen to others speak at all?" Lion Douluo grinned. "We listen, but only to our own people." The corner of Jai Yi's mouth twitched. "Forget it, I won't explain anymore. The more I explain, the angrier I get." Kyan Rengsu stood a few steps away, crossing her arms across her chest, a faint smile curling at the corner of her lips. She wanted to see how long this masked little thief could keep acting tough. Lion Douluo was the first to move. He reached out to grab Jai Yi's collar. His movement wasn't considered fast, but that force and aura would make an ordinary person's legs go weak just by looking at it. Jai Yi was somewhat annoyed. His mood had been alright today, but as a result, he was inexplicably treated as a grave robber, brought before a group of titled Douluos, explained for a long time with no one believing him, and now they still wanted to throw hands. "Fine. Even if I can't beat them, I still have to fight. At least I won't just stand here and take a beating." The moment 4 spirit rings rose from beneath Jai Yi's feet, the light in the entire hall of elders distorted for a split second. Purple, purple, black, black. 4 spirit rings slowly rotated, purple and black intertwined together, emitting a sense of oppression that completely didn't belong to a 4-ring spirit ancestor. Lion Douluo's hand stopped midair. Guangling Douluo's mouth opened into an O shape. Kingluan Douluo's eyes suddenly widened. The 1,000 Jun and Demon brothers simultaneously gasped a breath of cold air. 5 people, 5 titled Douluos, their expressions at this moment were surprisingly identical. Dazed, Lion Douluo reacted first, but his way of reacting was to rub his own eyes. Did I see wrong? Purple, purple, black, black. Guangling Douluo squatted down, tilting his head to stare at the spirit rings beneath Jai Yi's feet for a long time. This spirit power fluctuation doesn't look fake. 1,000 Jun Douluo and Demon Douluo exchanged a glance. How the hell is this possible? Demon Douluo swallowed a mouthful of saliva, reaching 4 rings at 12 years old, and with such a heaven-defying spirit ring configuration. What did this kid eat growing up? Kyan Rengsu stood a few steps away, the expression on her face finally changing. She had originally thought this fellow was just a very bold little thief, with at most a bit of cleverness. But now he seemed to be a prodigy-level fellow with terrifying talent. Purple, purple, black, black. This kind of spirit ring configuration. Even she herself couldn't do it. No one on the entire continent could do it. Kyan Rengsu looked at Jai Yi, her gaze becoming complicated. What on earth is the background of this youth? Just as everyone was immersed in shock, the door above the steps opened. 2 people walked out. Walking in the front was an elder in white hair and white robes, with a refined and emaciated face and a slender figure. The whole person was like a peerless precious sword sheathed in its scabbard. His sharpness was unrevealed, but no one dared to ignore him. Following behind him was a black-haired middle-aged man with a robust build, a meticulous expression, and eyes as sharp as an eagle. High Priest Kyan Dalu. Second Elder Gold Crocodile Douluo. The 2 of them walked down the steps, their gazes simultaneously falling upon the 4 spirit rings beneath Jai Yi's feet. Kyan Dalu's brows furrowed slightly. Gold Crocodile Douluo's brows also furrowed. The entire hall of elders was so quiet that breathing could be heard. Gold Crocodile Douluo turned his head to look at Kyan Dalu, his gaze carrying inquiry. Chapter 4 Kyan Dalu, whose face changes instantly, stays in Spirit Hall. Kyan Dalu did not reply immediately, instead closing his eyes to sense for a moment. A few seconds later, he opened his eyes and shook his head slightly. Gold Crocodile Douluo frowned even tighter. He didn't accept a divinity legacy. This meant that this child's talent was innate, not piled up by external forces. It was truly his first time seeing such a monster. Kyan Dalu walked down the last step and stood in front of Jai Yi. With white hair and white robes, his rank 99 spirit power was not released at all, but just standing there, he felt like facing a mountain. Jai Yi raised his head to look at him. The 2 stared at each other for 3 seconds. Kyan Dalu spoke, his voice not loud, but every word was crystal clear. What is your name? Jai Yi. How old are you? 12. Kyan Dalu nodded. 12 years old, 4 rings, twin 10,000-year spirit rings, and even the first 2 spirit rings are 1,000-year. Very good. Immediately after, Kyan Dalu released his spirit power coercion. Spirit King level. Jai Yi's body sank, feeling something pressing down on him. Not bad, he could handle it. Kyan Dalu glanced at him, raising the coercion to the Spirit Emperor level. Jai Yi's breathing grew rapid, and sweat began to bead on his forehead. Dense cracks appeared on the stone slab beneath his feet. This old fellow was testing him. Jai Yi gritted his teeth. Kyan Dalu's brows twitched slightly. The coercion continued to climb. Spirit Saint. This time it felt like an entire mountain was pressing down. The pressure directly doubled. Jai Yi's knees bent, his body leaned forward, one hand braced on the ground, and the other hand tightly gripping the void sword. The tip of the sword stabbed into the stone slab, carving out a deep groove. His entire body, from his fingers to his shoulders, was trembling. Right at this moment, Kyan Dalu stopped. The coercion receded like a tide. Jai panted heavily, his clothes behind already soaked in sweat, as if he had just been fished out of the water. No one spoke in the entire hall of elders. The expressions of the several elders changed. Lion Douluo, Guangling Douluo, Kingluan Douluo, Thousand Jun Douluo, Demon Douluo. Several of them looked at each other, seeing the same word in each other's eyes. Prodigy. 12 years old, able to withstand spirit saint level coercion. Although it was only for a short while. But this fucking kid was only 12 years old. Kyan Rengsu stood at the back, silent. She was thinking about one thing. When she was 12 years old, could she withstand her grandfather's spirit saint coercion? The answer made her very uncomfortable. No, this masked little thief had a talent above hers. Jai finally caught his breaths and looked up at Kyan Dalu. Senior, are you done testing? The corners of Kyan Dalu's mouth raised slightly as he walked over and patted his shoulder. Little fellow, what do you think of my spirit hall? Jai glanced around. Lion Douluo was winking at him. Guangling Douluo tilted his head to look at him. Kingluan Douluo was expressionless, but his eyes were much gentler, and the Thousand Jun and Demon brothers smiled more honestly than the other. Kyan Rengsu stood at the very back, her azure blue eyes looking right at him. Jai withdrew his spirit, and the 4 spirit rings dissipated into the air. Very good. Only someone still thinks I'm a tomb robber. The corners of Kyan Rengsu's mouth twitched slightly, and she didn't speak. Kyan Dalu laughed out loud, his laughter echoing around the Hall of Elders a few times before dissipating. Then his smile vanished instantly. His expression changed, and his gaze grew as sharp as a knife. Little fellow, if you join my spirit hall, we are our own people. If you don't join. He paused. HMPH, trespassing in the forbidden land of my spirit hall is a capital crime. You better think it through. Jai widened his eyes. How could this old fellow change his face so quickly? Just a moment ago he was smiling and patting his shoulder, and turning around he put a knife to his neck. Kyan Rengsu couldn't hold back because of her grandfather's move, her mouth curving slightly before quickly pulling it back. Jai looked at her, then at Kyan Dalu, and then at the 6 elders around. A group of old fellows were waiting for his answer. Lion Douluo was still winking, the meaning quite obvious. Kid, agree quickly, don't be ungrateful. Jai sighed. Do I have a choice? Kyan Dalu smiled, this time a genuine smile. No. Then I'll join. Good. Demon Douluo was the first to rush over, reaching out to wrap his arm around Jai's shoulder. I said it, how could such a handsome little fellow be a tomb robber? Jai looked at him sideways. You weren't saying that just now. That was a misunderstanding just now, a misunderstanding. Demon Douluo chuckled awkwardly, then leaned in. Come, little fellow, take off your mask, and let us old fellows take a look. Didn't see it clearly just now. Jai glanced at Kyan Rengsu. Kyan Rengsu didn't speak, she had seen Jai. Well, very handsome. Jai reached out and took off his mask. The Hall of Elders grew quiet again. Demon Douluo's hand hugging his shoulder froze once more. The several elders were stunned again. Demon Douluo held back for a long time, finally squeezing out a sentence. Good boy, your uncle here was just being polite saying you're handsome. You fucking really are handsome. Lion Douluo crossed his arms and nodded seriously. Indeed handsome. If I looked like this when I was young, I wouldn't have been a bachelor until 80. Guangling Douluo circled around Jai. This facial structure, these features, this little face, even I'm tempted looking at it. Kingluan Douluo gave him a cold glance. Wipe your mouth clean before you speak. Guangling Douluo quickly wiped his face again. Thousand Jun Douluo walked over, patted Jai's other shoulder and didn't speak, but that expression clearly said, "Little fellow, you have a future." Kyan Dalu stood on the steps, his gaze lingering on Jai Yi's face for a moment, then turning to Kyan Rengsu. Then turning back to Jai Yi. Then turning to Kyan Rengsu again. Sweeping back and forth several times. Gold Crocodile Douluo stood behind him, noticing his eldest brother's gaze, his brows furrowing slightly. "Eldest brother, isn't this too hasty? This kid just arrived." Kyan Dalu didn't turn his head, his lips moving slightly, his voice audible only to Gold Crocodile. "Not hasty, such a sapling cannot be encountered in hundreds of years. Just let him stay in Spirit Hall for now, take it slow. In case the two of them take a fancy to each other, cough cough." Gold Crocodile Douluo didn't speak further. Kyan Rengsu noticed her grandfather's gaze, a blush flashing across her face, but it quickly disappeared. She knew her grandfather too well. That look, she had seen it before. In the past, grandfather had this kind of look when looking at young masters of those big families. It's just that it used to be disdain, but this time it seemed to be satisfaction. Kyan Rengsu snorted in her heart. Only 12 years old, hasn't even grown all his hair yet, what is there to be satisfied about? But she didn't show it. Kyan Dalu spoke. "Xyroxu, take him down to find a room." "Yes, grandfather." Jai Yi struggled out of Demon Douluo's arms and followed Kyan Rengsu outside. When walking out the gate of the Hall of Elders, he heard Lion Douluo's voice coming from behind. "Number 7, how many girls do you think this kid will ruin when he grows up?" He didn't hear Demon Douluo's answer clearly, but Guangling Douluo's laughter was heard clearly, very evil. Chapter 5, Jai Yi vs. Demon Priest. Jai Yi walked behind Kyan Rengsu, moving forward along the long corridor. Kyan Rengsu walked half a step ahead of him. Neither of them spoke. After walking for a distance, Kyan Rengsu suddenly spoke. "Were you really just passing by?" Jai Yi glanced at her. "Why would I lie to you? Then how did you get in? There are guards stationed outside the mausoleum, and it is impossible for a foreign spirit ancestor like you to sneak in without a sound. Furthermore, there is only one entrance to the tomb chamber. How did you slip past the guard's eyes?" Jai Yi was silent for 2 seconds. "I have my own methods." Kyan Rengsu stopped in her tracks, turned around and looked at him. "You have many secrets. Who doesn't have some secrets? Aren't you the same?" Kyan Rengsu stared at him for 2 seconds, then turned and continued walking. "We've reached your quarters." She pushed open a door to reveal a small room, but it was fully furnished with a clean bed, and a pot of tea and a plate of pastries were placed on the table. Jai Yi walked in and looked around. It was 100 times better than Flender's crappy inn. "Thank you." Kyan Rengsu stood at the doorway with no intention of entering. "Tomorrow, someone will come to bring you clothes and daily necessities. If you need anything, just tell the patrolling guards." "All right." Kyan Rengsu turned to leave, but suddenly stopped again. "Jai Yi. HM. Why do you keep wearing a mask all the time?" Jai Yi touched the iron grey mask in his hand. "Because I'm too handsome, and I'm afraid of trouble." Kyan Rengsu glanced at her, the corners of her mouth twitching slightly, not knowing whether she wanted to laugh or say something. In the end, she didn't say anything, turned around and left. The sound of footsteps gradually faded into the distance. Jai Yi closed the door, threw the mask onto the table, and plopped down onto the bed. The bed was very soft. He lay down and stared blankly at the ceiling for a moment. To be honest, in front of this group of old fellows, he still felt a bit intimidated. Having talent was true, but before growing up, it was completely useless. Fortunately, the people in the Hall of Elders were all normal. If it were the likes of Flender and Bibaidong, he would have been imprisoned and used as a tool long ago. But looking at the current situation, there is no difference from house arrest, right? Jai Yi rolled over, grabbed a pastry from the table, and took a bite. Mung bean cake, sweet without being greasy, melting the moment it entered the mouth. He chewed twice and took another bite. Forget it, house arrest it is. At least the resources were good. The next day, Jai was awakened by a knock on the door. Enter. The door was pushed open, and a maid walked in holding a tray with a set of clothes folded on it. Young Master Jai, these are your clothes. Jai sat up and rubbed his eyes. Put them on the table. The maid put down the clothes, looked up at him, and her face instantly turned red. She set down the tray and ran out. Jai was slightly stunned and looked down at himself. Bare-chested with messy hair and drool from sleep still hanging at the corner of his mouth. Was that really necessary? He walked over, closed the door, picked up the set of clothes, and shook them out. It was a dark blue robe edged with silver. The fabric felt very smooth, and the emblem of the spirit hall was embroidered on the chest. The waistband was black, paired with a pair of black short boots. Overall, it looked like a student uniform, but it was far more exquisite than any academy uniform he had ever seen. Jai put on the clothes and walked over to the mirror to take a look. The dark blue made his skin look even fairer, and the tightly cinched waistband emphasized his broad shoulders and narrow waist. His hair hadn't been combed yet and hung loosely over his shoulders, giving him a lazy yet attractive look instead. Very handsome. Jai nodded, showing no modesty in his evaluation of himself. He casually ruffled his hair a couple of times, didn't put on the mask again, and pushed open the door to walk out. The corridor was empty, with only one or two patrolling guards occasionally walking by in the distance. Jai stood at the doorway and thought for a moment. Where should he go? He only knew the way to the Hall of Elders. Running around blindly was out of the question. What if he ran into Bibaidong's place? That woman had more tricks than a hornet's nest. Right now, he was a 4-ing level 42 spirit master. Falling into her hands was no different from a chick falling into a fox's hands. Forget it, let's go to the Hall of Elders. At least that group of old fellows wouldn't harm him for the time being. Jai walked forward following yesterday's memories, turned 2 corners, passed through a long corridor, and the gates of the Hall of Elders appeared before his eyes. Just as he stepped onto the stairs, he heard a lazy voice coming from inside. You're here. Demon Douluo poked half his body out from the door, a toothpick clenched in his mouth, looking like he had just finished breakfast. Senior Demon, Jai gave a simple bow. Cut the formalities, Demon Douluo waved his hand. The High Priest asked me to test your skills today, come with me. Test my skills? It means having a fight, you and me. Jai was silent for a second. You're a titled Douluo, and you want to fight a 4-ing person like me. What scared? I'm afraid you'll beat me to death. Demon Douluo laughed heartily, walked over, and tried to put his arm around Jai's shoulders just like yesterday, but Jai dodged it. Rest assured, I'll hold back, just want to see your actual combat level. Jai thought about it and nodded. All right then. Demon Douluo led him to the plaza in front of the Hall of Elders. The plaza was very large, paved with entire slabs of bluestone, and 4 tall stone pillars stood at the 4 corners. The morning sunlight was just right, illuminating the entire plaza brightly. The passing guards and maids saw Demon Douluo standing in the center of the plaza, and all slowed down their pace. Then they saw Jai. A youth wearing a Spirit Hall student uniform stood opposite Demon Douluo. The guards stopped in their tracks. The maids also stopped in their tracks. Demon Priest is going to fight someone. Who is that opposite him? He looks quite young. I don't know, haven't seen him before. He should be a student from the academy. A few people looked at each other, tacitly retreating to the edge of the plaza and finding a spot neither too far nor too close to stand. Watching the spectacle was something that didn't distinguish between status levels. A few more people gathered around. More and more people came. Demon Douluo glanced around without caring in the least. He walked to the center of the plaza and turned to face Jai. Are you ready? Demon Douluo extended his right hand, and a coiling dragon rod glowing red appeared in his palm. Coiled around the rod was a golden dragon, winding all the way from the tail to the head of the rod, with 2 red gems embedded in the dragon's eyes, glittering in the sunlight. Coiling dragon rod. 9 spirit rings rose from beneath his feet. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 9 ring titled Douluo. As soon as the spirit rings appeared, the surroundings of the plaza instantly exploded into an uproar. 9 spirit rings are titled Douluo. Demon priest is so strong. A maid cupped her hands in front of her chest, her eyes practically turning into heart shapes. Demon priest is so handsome. Another one chimed in and shouted. Demon priest is way too handsome. The corners of Demon Douluo's mouth rose slightly. He spun the coiling dragon rod in his hand, placed it behind his back, and raised his chin high. That smug look of his was just like a peacock spreading its tail. Jai looked at him, remaining calm and composed. Chapter 6: Jai's 4 heaven-defying spirit abilities. Raising his right arm, opening his palm, he probed his 5 fingers into the void realm. A ripple spread through the air. Jai slowly pulled his right hand outward. A sword was pulled out from the void realm. The sword body was translucent, emitting the light of the void realm from within. The space at the edge of the blade was also slightly distorted. Space. Beneath Jai's feet, 4 spirit rings rose. Purple, purple, black, black. The 4 spirit rings slowly rotated, the purple and black lights intertwining. The surroundings of the plaza instantly fell silent. The maidservants who were chattering just moments ago all closed their mouths. A guard's sword slipped from his hand, clanging against the stone slabs, but no one went to pick it up. Wait, 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 did I see it wrong? Purple, purple, black, black, 4 rings, the 3rd spirit ring is a 10,000-year one. How is this possible? Aren't 10,000-year spirit rings supposed to be absorbed only after reaching the Spirit King? And his first 2 spirit rings turned out to be 1,000-year ones. How old is he even? 12, 13. Whose enshrined elder's child is this? His talent is simply too strong, right? Those few from the golden generation aren't this outrageous either. The guards chattered all at once, their tone shifting from shock to envy, and from envy to admiration. A maidservant suddenly spoke up. Her voice was not loud, but it could be heard clearly in the quiet crowd. Did you guys notice his appearance? Another maidservant next to her chimed in. His hands, his fingers are so long, would it hurt when curled up? Puri, you slutty wench, you won't even let someone this young go. But his face is also so handsome. Demon Douluo's smile froze at the corners of his mouth. The maidservants who were just calling him handsome were now all staring at Jai. Their eyes were brighter than the last. Each one was more flirtatious than the last. Demon Douluo curled his lips and muttered in a low voice. To what use is being handsome? He tightly gripped the coiling dragon rod and raised his chin at Jai. Little fellow, let's begin. Demon Douluo moved. He did not use his full strength, nor did he even use a spirit ability. The coiling dragon rod simply thrust forward with 7 parts of his strength, his speed suppressed to the Spirit King level. Taking this blow head-on was something a 4-ring spirit ancestor couldn't endure. Jai didn't receive it. With a tap of his toes, his entire person retreated half a zhang backward. The tip of the coiling dragon rod grazed across his chest, missing by 2 fingers. You dodge quite fast, Demon Douluo grinned widely, sweeping his rod horizontally. This single strike covered a range of 3 zhang, and the whistling sound of the wind made one's scalp tingle. Jai did not dodge this time. The first spirit ring lit up. First spirit ability. Space traceless. A faint light flashed across the translucent sword body. Jai raised his hand and swung his sword to meet the coiling dragon rod. The melan-eating guards around them sucked in a breath of cold air. A 4-ring spirit ancestor, using a sword to take a titled Douluo's coiling dragon rod head-on. Isn't this courting death? Sword and rod intersected. There was no sound of metal clashing. The void sword passed through the body of the coiling dragon rod, as if passing through air, without encountering any obstruction. The tip of the sword continued forward, heading straight for Demon Douluo's shoulder. Demon Douluo's eyes suddenly widened. Having lived for nearly 200 years, it was his first time seeing such a thing. The coiling dragon rod couldn't block the opponent's sword. What the hell kind of ghost is this? At this critical juncture, Demon Douluo abruptly leaned backward, and that translucent blade grazed across his shoulder. His clothes were torn, and a thin line of blood seeped out from his shoulder. The space around the wound was slightly distorted, as if something invisible was tearing at it. Demon Douluo retreated 3 steps and lowered his head to look at the wound on his shoulder. The blood could not be stopped. Moreover, the healing speed was 10 times slower than a normal wound. There was a strange tearing sensation at the wound, as if something was preventing the flesh from growing back. Your sword can ignore defense. Jai held the sword horizontally in front of him. Pretty much. Demon Douluo took a deep breath, the expression on his face changing from casual to serious. Good lad, then I won't stand on ceremony either. Finished speaking, Demon Douluo's speed increased. It upgraded from the Spirit King level to the Spirit Emperor level. The coiling dragon rod was like a living dragon, leaving trails of afterimages in the air, every strike carrying enough power to smash boulders into pieces. Jai did not collide with him head-on. The second spirit ring lit up. Second soul skill. Space close at hand. Jai's figure suddenly disappeared. The next instant, he appeared 3 kai behind Demon Douluo. The void sword silently stabbed toward Demon Douluo's lower back. Demon Douluo felt a chill on his back. This was the instinctive reaction of a titled Douluo. He didn't have time to turn around, so he swept the coiling dragon rod behind him while simultaneously rushing forward with his body. The tip of the sword scratched a cut on his lower back, not deep but painful enough. Demon Douluo turned around and saw that Jai had already retreated 2 zhang away, his blood stained on the sword in his hand. Teleportation, Demon Douluo knitted his brows. It's not teleportation, you had no spirit power fluctuations when moving, how did you do that? Spatial folding, Jai said. And what? I folded the space between us together, and I can cross it in a single step. Demon Douluo opened his mouth, failing to say anything. He decided not to ask anymore. Asking any further would make him look uncultured. The coiling dragon rod smashed down once more, this time his speed upgraded to the Spirit Saint level. Shadows of the rod filled the sky. Jai's space, close at hand, continuously activated, his figure flickering uncertainly across the plaza. The previous instant he was in the east, the next instant in the west, and another instant later he had already arrived above Demon Douluo's head. Demon Douluo's rod missed by just that tiny bit every time. Clearly it looked like it was about to hit, but when swung across, it only hit empty air. Several times the rod had already touched Jai's clothes, but at that exact moment his figure disappeared again, leaving only a faint afterimage torn apart by the wind of the rod. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. Demon Douluo became more and more irritated the more he fought. As a titled Douluo fighting a 4-ring spirit ancestor, he hadn't even touched a corner of the other's clothes after fighting for so long. Saying it out loud would be utterly disgraceful. Can't you brats stand still and fight? Senior, how can there be a fight where someone is told to stand still and take a beating? Demon Douluo laughed out of anger. Fine, if you won't stand still, I won't let you run either. His speed was raised to the Spirit Douluo level. The spirit power on the coiling dragon rod surged violently, every swing of the rod carrying a low roar, and several stone slabs on the plaza were blown away by the wind of the rod. Jai's pressure abruptly increased. Although space, close at hand, could achieve teleportation, its activation required extremely short time intervals. Demon Douluo's attack frequency was too high. The moment he flashed to a position, the rod had already followed over. The third 10,000-year spirit ring lit up. Third spirit ability. Void Absolute Domain. Centered on Jai Yi, a spherical space with a diameter of 10 meters, violently distorted once. The instant demon Douluo was pulled into the domain, he felt something was amiss. Every strike of the coiling dragon rod he swung had its trajectory deflected. Clearly aiming for Jai Yi's head, the rod instead slid past his shoulder. It wasn't that his strike went off course. Rather, the space within the domain distorted the attack's trajectory. Chapter 7: Demon Priest Who Desperately Wanted to Cleave Flender to Death. Jai Yi moved. Within the domain, his speed was ridiculously fast, and his figure seemed to appear in 3 positions simultaneously. One sword thrust from the front left, one sword slashed down from the rear right, and one sword cleaved down from above his head. All 3 swords were real, or rather, all of them were fake. Demon Douluo could not tell them apart. He could only swing his rod to block based on intuition, but the sword passed through the rod and left a wound on his arm. The next second, Demon Douluo's position changed. It wasn't that he moved himself. Rather, the spatial coordinates within the domain had been tampered with, forcibly translating his entire body by 3 feet right into the edge of Jai Yi's sword. Demon Douluo cursed inwardly. He hard-tanked this sword strike and violently smashed the coiling dragon rod onto the ground. With a booming sound, a 3-foot-deep pit exploded on the plaza, sending gravel flying in all directions. He wanted to use the shockwave to blast Jai Yi away. But after the shockwave entered the domain, its direction was distorted, with most of the power deflected elsewhere. Only a tiny fraction reached in front of Jai Yi, which was completely nullified by his semi-void manifestation state. Demon Douluo stopped his attack, stood at the edge of the domain, and his face was full of disbelief. Immune to damage. Immune to spatial fluctuation-type attacks, Jai Yi corrected. Demon Douluo fell silent. Now he finally understood why the High Priest wanted him to personally test this kid's spirit. It wasn't to give this kid a stern warning. It was to see just how ridiculous this kid's spirit really was. Now he knew. It was simply ridiculously absurd to the extreme. Come again, Demon Douluo took a deep breath. This time he used the true strength of a titled Douluo. Although he wasn't going all out, the aura of 9 spirit rings pressed down, causing the entire plaza to tremble. The onlookers, guards, and maidservants were forced to retreat repeatedly by this aura, and quite a few maidservants turned pale, clutching their chests and struggling to breathe. Jai Yi was also suppressed quite severely. But he didn't retreat. His 4th spirit ring lit up. The black spirit ring rotated violently, emitting a palpitations-inducing fluctuation. The light on the void sword changed from translucent to pitch black. 4th spirit ability. Void Annihilation Slash. Jai Yi swung his sword. A pitch-black half-moon sword beam flew out from the blade. Wherever it passed, the air was torn open into a long black fissure, and spatial fragments at the edge of the fissure peeled off one after another, falling to the ground like broken glass and making a crisp sound. Demon Douluo's pupils shrank abruptly. This sword beam brought a sense of danger, even to a titled Douluo. He gripped the coiling dragon rod with both hands, all 9 spirit rings lit up, and a golden energy shield condensed in front of him. He didn't dodge. He wanted to experience firsthand just how strong this strike was. The pitch-black sword beam crashed into the golden energy shield. There was no sound. A crack appeared on the shield. Demon Douluo had a bad premonition and directly flashed away. The next second, the pitch-black sword beam pierced through the shield and struck the ground. It erupted with a violent sound. Demon Douluo looked down at the large pit on the ground and was stunned for 2 seconds. Then he raised his head to look at Jai Yi. How could this kid's 4th spirit ability be so terrifying? This single strike had at least the power of the Spirit Emperor level. And it ignored defense. Jai Yi withdrew his sword, panting heavily, his forehead covered in sweat. The consumption of a 10,000-year spirit ring was simply too great. With his current spirit power, he could at most use his 3rd and 4th spirit abilities once each. At the edge of the plaza, all the guards and maidservants were dumbfounded. A four-ring spirit ancestor actually beat back a titled Douluo. Although the demon priest obviously hadn't used his full strength. But wasn't this too outrageous? Did I see that wrong? The demon priest was injured. Who on earth is that guy, such an awesome genius? Is this fucking really four rings? A genius, this fucking prodigy. The maidservant's focus was a bit different. The way he swings his sword is so handsome. Did you see the sweat on his forehead? It's flowing down along that jawline. I really want to wipe it for him. Demon Douluo's mouth twitched. He decided to ignore that group of fangirls. Little fellow, these spirit abilities of yours. He paused, finding himself at a loss for words to describe them. Perverted, prodigy, heaven-defying. None of them quite hit the mark. How on earth have you survived until now? He finally asked. Jai wiped his sweat. What do you mean? With you being able to awaken such a powerful spirit. You must have innate full spirit power, right? Why didn't Spirit Hall receive any news about a genius awakening with innate full spirit power? Could it be that you are a descendant of some big family? Jai shook his head. I am an orphan. As for why Spirit Hall didn't receive the news of my awakening twin spirits and innate full spirit power, it's because of a guy named Flender. He is the headmaster of Shrek Academy. After he saw the spirit I awakened, he kept pestering me to join Shrek Academy. When I disagreed, he kept following by my side, refusing to let me leave his sight. Moreover, he even bribed the Deacon Lord of Spirit Hall to prevent them from reporting the news of my innate full spirit power, awakening to Spirit Hall. Speaking of this, Jai's expression was full of grievance. Demon Priest listening from the side couldn't help but clench his fists. Towards the end, Jai's voice lowered. 6 years. He trapped me for 6 years. Wherever I went, he followed. He even squatted and waited at the door when I went to the bathroom. Every time I ran away, he caught me. Every time I ran, he caught me. Demon Douluo's fists clenched so tightly they cracked. 6 years, ever since your awakening at age 6, he locked you up until now. Yeah, if I hadn't found a chance to run away half a month ago, I'm afraid. Demon Douluo fell silent. A 6-year-old child awakened twin spirits and innate full spirit power. He should have been nurtured as a genius, enjoyed the best resources, and walked down the most dazzling path. Instead, he was pestered by a madman. Not teaching him anything, not letting him leave, and not letting him report to Spirit Hall. Just trapping him by his side for 6 whole years. Demon Douluo loosened his tightly clenched fists and reached out to pat Jai on the shoulder. You've suffered these past 6 years. Jai shook his head. It's all right, at least my life is tough. I didn't die, and my luck was good. He said it lightly, but Demon Douluo heard the weight behind those words. A child from 6 to 12 years old, the 6 years that should have been best nurtured, were completely ruined. That wasn't quite right. They weren't ruined. Relying entirely on himself, this kid stubbornly cultivated to become a spirit ancestor with a double 10,000-year ring configuration. It really was so outrageous. What if someone had taught him? What if he had been given the best resources? Demon Douluo didn't dare to imagine. That Flender, where is he now? Jai glanced at him. Demon Senior, what are you going to do? I'm going to cleave him to death. Senior, he is a spirit saint with 7 rings after all. So what if he has 7 rings? I can cleave a 7 ring to death with a single rod. Jai opened his mouth, finding it impossible to refute. A titled Douluo cleaving a spirit saint was no different from chopping firewood. Chapter 8, The Hall of Elders That Feels Like Home. At this moment, a deep voice came from behind the crowd at the edge of the plaza. You don't need to go. The crowd automatically parted, and Lion Douluo strode out. Guangaling Douluo and Kingluan Douluo followed behind him, and the expressions of all 3 men did not look too good. Lion Douluo walked up to Jaiyi and looked down at him. Little fellow, is that Flender you mentioned the headmaster of Shrek Academy? Yes. Where is Shrek Academy? Soto City, south of the city. Lion Douluo nodded and turned to leave. Senior Lion, Jaiyi called out to stop him. Lion Douluo turned his head back. What are you going to do? Go have a chat with that Flender. When Lion Douluo said have a chat, the corners of his mouth twitched, and that smile made Jaiyi's back turn cold. Senior Lion, he is a headmaster after all, please don't beat him to death. Rest assured he won't die. Lion Douluo paused. At worst, he'll just be crippled. After finishing, he kicked off the ground, and his entire person soared straight up into the sky. His golden lion mane burst open under the sunlight, and in the blink of an eye, he vanished into the horizon. Guangaling Douluo looked at the direction where Lion Douluo disappeared and clicked his tongue twice. Old Lion's temper is quite big today. Kingluan Douluo said coldly, after hearing that kind of thing, whose temper wouldn't be big. Guangaling Douluo thought about it and nodded. That's true, if it were me I would go too. After saying that, he looked at Jaiyi, the expression on his face rarely serious. Little fellow, your luck is not bad. Being locked up for 6 years, you were still able to cultivate to 4 rings, run out, and even run all the way to our spirit hall. Jaiyi didn't know whether to call his luck good or bad. He ran out from Flender's hands, only to be caught by Spirit Hall. Although Spirit Hall's treatment was 10,000 times better than Flender's place, Kingluan Douluo felt somewhat doubtful. Jaiyi, that third soul skill of yours, once the domain is opened, can it immune any attack? Non-physical ones can. Guangaling Douluo nodded thoughtfully, then suddenly asked again, how far can your second soul skill teleport? Currently about 50 zhang, and even further if my spirit power is sufficient. 50 zhang, Guangaling Douluo clicked his tongue. At your age, I couldn't shoot that far. Jaiyi didn't know how to respond to this, so he simply didn't answer. Demon Douluo walked over and once again put an arm around his shoulders, this time with a much lighter force. Little fellow, since you have chosen to join Spirit Hall, the Hall of Elders will be your home from now on. Jaiyi raised his head to look at him. Demon Douluo's expression didn't look like he was joking. Us old fellows can be considered your elders. In the future, whoever dares to bully you, just call me directly. As he spoke, he patted his own chest. I will come and beat them up for you. Jaiyi was stunned for a moment. He had transmigrated for 12 years and had seen many people. This was the first time he was protected by someone. Senior Daemon. Stop, stop, stop. I am a person who cannot bear to hear cheesy words. Demon Douluo released his shoulders and took a step back. You just need to remember that in Spirit Hall, no one can touch you. Jaiyi nodded and didn't speak again. Behind the second-floor window, Lion Dalu took all of this in. Gold Crocodile Douluo stood by his side, his expression changing from solemn to satisfied. Big brother Lion has already set out. Lion Dalu nodded. Tell Lion not to beat the person to death. Then just cripple him, Gold Crocodile Douluo said indifferently. Lion Dalu glanced at him, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Crippling is fine. Gold Crocodile Douluo also smiled. The two men looked at each other, their smiles carrying the exact same meaning. Anyone who dares to touch someone favored by our Spirit Hall is tired of living. On the plaza, Jaiyi wiped the sweat from his forehead, feeling somewhat unsteady on his feet. The previous battle consumed too much energy, and he needed a good rest. Seniors, if there's nothing else, I will head back first. Crested and Guangaling nodded. Go on, Demon Douluo waved his hand. Rest well, tonight I will have someone send you something to eat, so you can nourish yourself properly. Jaiyi turned around and walked back. After walking a few steps, he suddenly stopped and looked back at Demon Douluo. Senior. HM. Thank you. Demon Douluo was stunned for a moment, then grinned. I told you not to be cheesy, get lost quickly. Jai smiled and turned away. He walked toward the edge of the plaza, and the watching guards and maids automatically made way for a path. Everyone's gaze towards him was different now. In the eyes of the guards was admiration and envy. In the eyes of the maids, Jai quickened his pace. The gazes of a few maids looked as if they wanted to swallow him alive. Just as he walked out of the plaza, a maid squeezed out from the crowd, holding a towel in her hand. Young Master Jai, wipe your sweat. Jai took it, thank you. Another maid handed over a cup of water. Are you thirsty? This is honey water. Jai took that as well, thank you. The third maid directly took out a fan to fan him. Are you hot? Let me fan you. Jai glanced at the surrounding people and found that 4 or 5 more maids were squeezing over this way, holding various things in their hands. Pastries, handkerchiefs, fruits, and even a bouquet of flowers. This scene, Jai decided to run away quickly. Thank you all for your kind intentions. I suddenly remembered I have some matters to attend to, I'll be leaving first. Jai shoved the towel and water back into the maid's hands and turned and ran. The disappointed voices of the maids came from behind. Why did he leave? I haven't even asked what his name is yet. I know his name is Jai Yi, I heard Demon Priest shout it. Jai Yi. What a nice sounding name. Don't you guys think he looks very handsome even when he runs? Even the back of his head is good looking. Jai Yi ran extremely fast, but his ears heard it crystal clear. He somewhat regretted not wearing a mask today. Jai Yi returned to his room and did not lie down immediately. He sat cross-legged on the bed, closed his eyes, and began to meditate. Today's consumption was too great, and his spirit power was almost completely depleted. But the more it was this kind of time, the less he could relax. The recovery period after spirit power overdraft is the best timing to boost spirit power. He already knew this logic before his transmigration. That lunatic Flender had never taught him these things. Time passed bit by bit. The sky gradually turned dark. During this period, a maid came to deliver food and knocked gently 3 times on the door. No one answered. She knocked 3 times again. Still no one answered. The maid pressed her ear against the door panel to listen, and there was not the slightest sound inside. She lowered her head to look at the tray she was holding. A disappointed expression appeared on her face, and she turned and left. After a while, another maid came. The same knocking, the same waiting, the same disappointment. During this period, quite a few maids had experienced the same thing. Jai was completely unaware of all this. His consciousness was immersed in the circulation of spirit power, and he had no perception of the outside world. The spirit power within his body was like a dried-up river, slowly being refilled bit by bit. Chapter 9: Spirit Hall Golden Generation. With every bit of recovery, the riverbed widened by a fraction. This process was very slow, but it was very solid. Late at night, Jai opened his eyes. A burst of spirit power fluctuations emanated from his body. A breakthrough. Level 43. He lowered his head to look at his hands and clenched his fists. Even though he had twin ultimate spirits, his cultivate speed had not slowed down at all. Instead, it was even faster. Grumble. His stomach suddenly let out a growl. Jai rubbed his belly, and only then remembered that he had only eaten 2 mukbang cakes the entire day. Just as he was preparing to get out of bed to find something to eat, a cautious voice came from the doorway. Young Master Jai, are you awake? Jai was slightly stunned. I am awake. The door was pushed open, and a maid walked in carrying a tray. On the tray were 2 dishes, a soup and a bowl of rice. The dishes were still steaming, obviously freshly cooked not long ago. You haven't eaten anything from morning until now. A few of us have been waiting outside, and we went to reheat it every half an hour. Jai looked at that bowl of rice, then raised his head to look at the maid. This girl had a melon seed face, very big eyes, and 2 dimples when she smiled. Placed in his past life, she would also be at the celebrity level. At this moment, she was looking at him with an expectant face. Jia Yi calculated every half an hour. From the time he came back until now, it was at least 7 or 8 hours. These maids had been waiting at the door, just so he could eat a hot meal when he woke up. "Thank you," Jia Yi said it very seriously. The maid's face turned red all at once. "And no, you're welcome, this is what we ought to do." Jia Yi picked up the bowl and began to eat. The rice was steamed just right, with each grain distinct, and chewing it produced a faint sweetness. The dishes were braised spare ribs and stir-fried seasonal vegetables, and the soup was mushroom soup. The tastes were all quite good. He ate very quickly, but his eating manners were not ugly. The maid stood to one side, changing from lowering her head to sneak glances at the beginning to openly staring. Jia Yi's profile under the candlelight had clear lines, his eyelashes cast a small shadow under his eyes, his cheeks slightly bulged when he chewed, and a little sheen of oil stained his lips. The maid's mouth opened slightly, her gaze falling on Jia Yi's lips, her eyes growing increasingly fixed. Saliva trickled down from the corner of her mouth, which she didn't even notice herself. Eating halfway through, Jia Yi felt that burning gaze and raised his head to glance at her. "Do you want to eat too?" The maid suddenly snapped back to her senses and hurriedly shook her head. "And no, I don't want to eat." "It's fine, come over and eat together. I can't finish this much anyway." The maid shook her head again, her complexion even redder than before, blushing all the way from her cheeks to the roots of her ears. She indeed did not want to eat food. What she wanted to eat was fundamentally not food. Meeting her gaze, Jia Yi's brain turned for a second, and then he understood in a second. Holy shit. What this woman wanted to eat was him. The air fell silent for 2 seconds. Jia Yi put down his chopsticks, picked up the soup bowl to take a sip, and used the soup bowl to block his face. If there's nothing else, you can step down first." The maid's gaze instantly dimmed. "Yes." She bowed, turned to walk outside, and glanced back when she reached the doorway. Jia Yi was still holding the soup bowl, blocking in front of his face. The maid sighed, walked out, and softly closed the door. Jia Yi put down the soup bowl and let out a long breath. Too dangerous. Being handsome is too dangerous. He lowered his head to look at the clothes he was wearing, a dark blue student uniform with the waistband cinched tightly. Tomorrow he would change into a loose one. No, starting tomorrow, he should still put on the mask. Although wearing it was also quite handsome, at least it covered half his face, which should be able to avoid a bit of trouble. Jia Yi finished eating the remaining food and sat back on the bed. Jia Yi closed the door and sat back on the bed. The next day, when Jia Yi woke up, the sky was already very bright. Yesterday he really consumed too much, and he overslept. Afterwards he sat up and stretched, circulating his spirit power for a round within his body. His condition was very good. Getting out of bed, putting on his shoes, he walked to the doorway and pulled open the door. "You're awake." Jia Yi was instantly speechless. Why was someone waiting at his door for him to wake up every single day? He rubbed his eyes, preparing to say, "Just put the breakfast on the table." But the words stopped at the tip of his tongue. Standing at the doorway was not a maid. It was 3 people. 2 men and a woman, all slightly older than him, looking around 15 or 16 years old. One with red hair, one with grey hair, and one with brown hair. The red-haired one was the tallest and solidly built, with his arms crossed over his chest, his chin lifted high, carrying an innate arrogance in his gaze. The grey-haired one had hair draped over his shoulders, a somewhat steadier expression, and was toying with a short blade in his hand. The brown-haired one was a female, with a head of long brown hair, delicate facial features, and an astonishing figure with curves, wearing a tight-fitting combat uniform where everything that should protrude protruded and everything that should curve curved. Jia Yi knew who it was without even thinking. Spirit Hall Golden Generation. The red-haired one was Yan, the grey-haired one was Sai Yue, and the brown-haired one was Hu Liena. The 3 of them stood in a row, looking at him uniformly. Before Jai Yi could even speak, Yan spoke first. "You are Jai Yi." His voice was very loud, and his tone was condescending, making people very unhappy. Jai Yi glanced at him and didn't speak. Then his gaze turned to Hu Liena, looking her up and down once. Needless to say, this woman indeed had capital. Her figure was so good that she didn't look like 15 or 16 years old. Everything she should have was there, and the proportions were very good. That face was also the same, exquisite facial features, slightly thick lips, carrying a kind of natural seductiveness. It was alluring charm. It didn't look like it was deliberately put on at all, but rather like it was in her bones. Jai Yi took a couple more glances. Yan's face turned black all at once. The other party ignored him and still looked at Nana with that kind of gaze. Nana was his woman. "I'm asking you a question," Yan stepped forward. "You are that fellow who fought with Demon Priest in the plaza." Jai Yi finally pulled his gaze back from Hu Liena's body and glanced at Yan. "Who the hell are you?" Yan's mouth twitched. "My name is Yan, Spirit Hall Golden Generation." "Never heard of it." Yan's face turned completely black. He clenched his fists tightly, spirit power fluctuations exploding across the surface of his body, and the stone slab beneath his feet let out a muffled sound. Zai Yu reached out to stop him. "Yan, calm down." Zai Yue's voice was not loud but very steady. He turned his head to look at Jai Yi, his tone becoming much more polite. "Brother Jai Yi, my name is Zai Yue. This is my younger sister Hu Liena, and this one is Yan. The three of us received instructions from His Holiness, the Pope, to come over and spar with you a bit." Jai Yi's head ached. As expected, the news of yesterday's battle spread to Bibaidong's ears, and that woman truly couldn't sit still anymore. "Spar? That sounds nice. Isn't it just wanting to probe his bottom line?" Jai Yi waved his hand. "I have no time, let's talk about it next time." Yan immediately became displeased. "Kid, you won't even listen to the words of His Holiness the Pope. You need to figure it out, this is Spirit Hall. The words of His Holiness the Pope are commands." Jai Yi glanced at him disdainfully. "What hall is this place?" Yan was stunned for a moment. "Hall of Elders. Who manages the Hall of Elders?" Chapter 10, Lion Priest Descends Upon Shrek Academy. Yan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Everyone in Spirit Hall knew that the Hall of Elders was under the jurisdiction of High Priest Kyan Dalu. Jai Yi looked at him and said leisurely, "The Supreme Pontiff Palace is over there. If you want to listen to orders, go over there. This is the Hall of Elders, and I don't listen. If Bibaidong has the ability, she can come beat me up herself." Yan's face turned as red as pig liver. Zai Yu frowned and said nothing. Hu Liena had remained silent all this time. She stood to the side with her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on Jai Yi. From the moment Jai Yi opened the door, she had been watching him. Not because he was handsome, even though he was indeed handsome. It was because she had already activated her charm skill. She had used it from the very first second they met. Yet the youth before her, 3 or 4 years younger than her, showed no reaction whatsoever from beginning to end. His eyes remained completely clear and entirely unaffected. How could this be? Hu Liena was very confident in her charm skill. Among her peers, no one could be completely immune. At the very least, they would suffer a moment of trance. Yet this youth named Jai Yi was not the least bit dazed. When he sized up her figure earlier, his gaze held only normal appreciation, without a trace of obsession from being charmed. She took a deep breath and intensified her charm. Jai Yi walked past her. As they brushed past each other, he tilted his head to look at her, his lips moving as he spoke in a voice only the two of them could hear. "Don't waste your charm on me, it won't work." Hu Liena's body froze. Jai Yi walked away without even turning his head. "Please leave." The three of them stood at the entrance for a moment. Zai Yu was the first to turn around. "Let's go." Yan was unwilling to accept this. "We're just leaving like this, that kid is too arrogant." He is from the Hall of Elders, and we are from the Supreme Pontiff Palace, Ziyu said calmly. If we make a move here, it won't be easy to explain. Yang grit his teeth, took another look in the direction Jai had vanished, and cursed fiercely. The three of them left. Juliana walked at the very back, her head lowered, with Jai's words continuously echoing in her mind. Don't waste your charm on me, it won't work. How did he notice? Did he realize it from the very first second they met? Juliana bit her lip. She refused to yield. Jai reached the entrance of the Hall of Elders and stopped. He glanced back to make sure those three hadn't followed him. He sighed. Bibi Dong sending the Golden Generation to find him meant she had begun to pay attention to him. This was not a good thing. That woman was far too vicious and scheming, who knew what plans she was hatching. Forget it, as long as I stay in the Hall of Elders, she won't be able to touch me. Jai stepped into the Hall of Elders. The interior of the hall was very quiet. He scanned the room, 6 priests were present. The lion priest was missing. Jai was momentarily stunned. Only then did he remember that yesterday, Lion Douluo soared into the sky and left for Soto City. Don't tell me he actually went to beat up Flender. He looked all around. Indeed, there was no sign of the lion priest. Where is Senior Lion? Jai asked. Demon Douluo looked up at him and grinned. Old Lion he left yesterday. Where did he go? To Soto City, of course, Demon Douluo said as if it were obvious. Jai fell silent. At the same time. Soto City, South City. A dilapidated village sat by the roadside, with a crooked wooden sign standing at the entrance bearing 4 characters. Shrek Academy. It was currently admissions season. Behind the wooden sign was a long queue, mostly consisting of parents with their children. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. The children were mostly around 11, 12, or 13 years old. A parent was chatting with the person beside him. I heard this academy is amazing, it only accepts monsters. My child's spirit is a snake, that should count as a monster, right? What's a snake? My child's spirit is a pile of poop, now that's a monster. That really is pretty weird. At the front of the queue, a grey-haired old man sat in a chair, with a table in front of him. Teacher, here are 10 gold coins. Extend one arm. Age does not qualify, you may leave. Our teacher, my son has only just passed the age requirement. Could you make an exception? The child's parent pleaded softly. The old man wasn't buying it and sighed. He announced once again. The academy's rule is that anyone over the age requirement will not be accepted. It's not like you didn't know. What about our application fee? Once paid, non-refundable. This, non-refundable. You're clearly scamming people out of money. The parent froze for a moment, then grew anxious as soon as he realized what was happening. Losing 10 gold coins for nothing, who wouldn't be anxious? Move along quickly, don't hold up the people behind you. No way, you must refund our application fee, or we won't leave. If I had known this Shrek Academy was so rundown, we shouldn't have come. The old man shook his head and called out. Mubai, someone wants a refund on their application fee, handle it. Sure thing, if you want a refund, defeat me and you'll get every coin back. A blonde young man jumped down from a tree, looking at the father and son haughtily, his eyes filled with disdain. Then he directly released his spirit. Yellow, yellow, purple. A 3-ring spirit elder. Instantly shocking the surrounding parents and students. Little San, isn't he that guy we met at the hotel? In the queue, a pink rabbit-eared lowly spoke to the blue-clothed youth beside her. Yeah, Zyro Wu, I really didn't expect we'd meet him again here. Suddenly, a disdainful voice rang out. HMPH, a 3-ring kid, putting on such a grand show of strength. A figure descended from the sky, landing right at the entrance of Shrek Academy. A tall physique, short red hair, a square face, and eyes like brass bells. He wore deep golden armor with the emblem of Spirit Hall embroidered on the chest. Lion Douluo. He looked up at the crooked wooden sign and read aloud. Shrek Academy. Then he turned his head, took a look at the dilapidated village before him, and then at the long line of parents and children. He grinned. That's it. Li Yusong stood up, the smile on his face freezing. He recognized the emblem on the armor. Spirit Hall. And that aura. This person is definitely a titled Douluo. May I ask who you are, Your Excellency? Lion Douluo crossed his arms over his chest, looking down at the grey-haired old man in front of him, making no attempt to hide the disdain at the corners of his mouth. Tell your Shrek Academy's dean to get his ass out here. I have business with him. Li Yusong was startled. Looking for the Dane. In all his decades of life, this was the first time he had seen a titled Douluo come looking for someone using words like, get his ass out here. He hesitated for a moment, not daring to ask further. Mubai, pour a cup of tea for His Excellency and take good care of him. Dai Mubai responded. Yes, Teacher Li. Li Yusong turned and hurried into the academy, moving not like an old man in his 60s, but like an 18-year-old youth. Chapter 11, Beat Up Dai Mubai, Flender appears. Lion Douluo stood in place, with no intention of sitting down. Dai Mubai walked over carrying a cup of tea, bending low with an expression of utmost respect. Your Excellency, please have some tea. Lion Douluo looked down at him. Just now, weren't you acting quite arrogant, brat? Dai Mubai's hand holding the tea froze. If someone can beat you, it'll all be refunded in full. Lion Douluo repeated his words verbatim in an indifferent tone. You said those words, didn't you? Dai Mubai's expression turned awkward. He opened his mouth to say something, but couldn't utter a single word. Lion Douluo didn't look at him again, shifting his gaze to the crowd of parents and children. The parent who had just been driven away somehow mustered up courage, suddenly rushed out of the crowd, and fell to his knees before Lion Douluo with a thud. My lord, please grant us justice. He pointed at Dai Mubai, his voice trembling. This trash academy is scamming people. We paid 10 gold coins, but if the age doesn't match after testing, they won't refund it. They even threatened us. My son was considered a genius back in the elementary academy, but not only did this academy refuse us, they even looked down on us. His words were like a match thrown into a pan of hot oil. The crowd instantly erupted. Yes, my neighbor's child was the same. Paid the money last year, said he was disqualified, and didn't refund a single cent. What Shrek Academy? It's just a scamming den. I heard last time a parent refused to accept it, they beat him up and threw him out. My lord, you must grant us justice. The parents all chimed in at once, each voice louder than the last. Listening to them, the curl of Lion Douluo's lips widened. He turned his head and looked at Dai Mubai once more. It seems your academy doesn't have a very good reputation. Sweat began to break out on Dai Mubai's forehead. As expected, whatever kind of principal there is brings out the same kind of students. After saying this, Lion Douluo let out a cold snort through his nose. Just a single snort. HMPH. The sound wasn't loud, but accompanied by spirit power pressure, it slammed directly into Dai Mubai's chest. Dai Mubai's body flew out like a broken kite, flipping twice in the air before crashing into a thick tree trunk 30 feet away and coming to stop. With a crack, a fissure opened on the tree trunk. Dai Mubai slid down from the trunk, slumping on the ground, already unconscious. A streak of blood hung from the corner of his mouth. The entire square instantly fell silent. Everyone looked at the blonde youth lying motionless on the ground, then looked at Lion Douluo, their eyes filled with terror and awe. Lion Douluo hadn't even moved a hand. He had merely snorted. A grand 3-ring spirit elder couldn't even withstand a single snort. This was a titled Douluo. Lion Douluo patted away non-existent dust on his chest armor, and just as he was about to speak, his nose twitched slightly. He turned his head, his gaze sweeping across the queue. Soon, his vision locked onto a young girl wearing a pink dress. The girl was around 11 or 12 years old, a long scorpion braid hanging behind her, with large eyes. At this moment, she was tightly shrinking behind a blue-clothed boy, her body trembling slightly. Lion Douluo's eyes lit up slightly. A 100,000-year spirit beast. It was actually a 100,000-year spirit beast in human form. But he was in no hurry. Now was not the time to deal with this matter. He pulled back his gaze and looked towards the academy's main gate again. Inside the gate, several people were hurriedly walking out. Walking in front was a middle-aged man wearing glasses, 2 medicinal plasters stuck to his face, one eye bruised black and blue, and a slight limp in his gait. Flender. Behind him followed Lai Yusong, as well as a chubby middle-aged man, whose belly was so big it looked like he was 8 months pregnant. Xiao Xin, a teacher of Shrek Academy, with a food system spirit. Further behind was a burly man with short hair and a stern, cold face, carrying an aura of iron and blood. Xiao Wuji, one of only 2 spirit saints in Shrek Academy. When the several people reached the academy entrance and saw Dai Mubai lying unconscious on the ground, their faces changed. Flender's eyelids twitched. But he didn't explode with rage, nor did he even question. He stepped quickly up to Lion Douluo, cupping his hands together with his waist bent low. "This humble one is Flender. May I ask who your excellency is?" His voice was extremely respectful, without a flaw to be found. Lion Douluo looked down at him. "You are Flender." "Indeed. This old man is Lion, the 4th enshrinement of the Hall of Elders. Back then, was it you, this mixed-feathered bird, who kept Jai Yi under house arrest for 6 years?" Jai Yi, he went to Spirit Hall. "Looks like I got the right person." Flender's heart sank. "Your Excellency, what did that kid say to you?" Lion Douluo didn't answer the question. He extended a finger, pointed at Flender, and then pointed at Dai Mubai lying on the ground. However, what this old man didn't expect is that even a 3-ring spirit elder from your academy could be so arrogant. A student publicly threatening commoners, what grand authority. Flender's expression changed. "Your Excellency, there might be a misunderstanding here." "Misunderstanding?" Lion Douluo's voice suddenly rose by an octave. "This old man saw and heard it with my own eyes and ears, and you tell me it's a misunderstanding." Flender was forced back 2 steps by this shout, beads of sweat dripping down from his forehead one by one. Xiao Wuji took a step forward, standing in front of Flender. He looked up at Lion Douluo, the expression on his face grim. "Your Excellency, as a titled Douluo, isn't it somewhat inappropriate for you to act against us juniors?" Lion Douluo looked down at him. "Who are you?" "This humble one is Xiao Wuji, Vice Principal of Shrek Academy." "You are the unmovable bright king, Xiao Wuji, how interesting." Lion Douluo laughed, loud and clear. In the next second, his gaze suddenly turned cold. The pressure of a 9-ring titled Douluo was released without reservation. Yellow's yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. Exuding terrifying pressure, it awed everyone present. Xiao Wuji's legs instantly went weak. The gap between a spirit saint and a titled Douluo was simply too vast. Flender and the other teachers were also forced onto their knees by this overwhelming pressure. The surrounding students and parents had long retreated dozens of feet away, everyone trembling. Lion Douluo withdrew the pressure. Xiao Wuji and the others lay prone on the ground, gasping heavily for air, their clothes completely soaked on their backs. "I came today for no other reason," Lion Douluo's voice restored its calm. "Simply to teach you all a lesson on Jai Yi's behalf. I must say, you mixed-feathered bird really are a lunatic. When he was 6 years old, you discovered a child in a village who awakened twin spirits with innate full soul power. You bribed a deacon of Spirit Hall and concealed the information without reporting it. You trapped that child by your side for 6 years, not allowing him to leave and preventing anyone from finding him. Isn't that exceedingly despicable? With every sentence Lion Douluo spoke, he took a step closer to Flender. Chapter 12, brutally beating up Flender and discovering the transformed 100,000-year soul beast Zyro Wu. With every sentence Flender heard, he took a step back. Finally, he was forced against the dilapidated wall of the academy, his back pressing against it, with nowhere left to retreat. What, this principal is actually this kind of person? I seem to remember that child is an orphan. I remember he had a good spirit awakening 6 years ago, but I don't know where he went afterward. Trapped by his side for 6 years, is this person crazy? The surrounding parents couldn't help but curse Flender one by one. If it weren't for the fact that the other party was a spirit master, they probably would have smashed him with stones on the spot. Twin spirits' innate full spirit power. Didn't teacher say that twin spirits and innate full spirit power are very rare? Tangsun thought to himself. Afterward, he noticed that Zyro Wu behind him kept trembling. Zyro Wu, what's wrong with you? Little San, let us leave, okay? Let's not come to this academy. Zyro Wu stammered, not daring to look at Lion Douluo at all. Tang San was a bit puzzled. It's fine, Zyro Wu, let's wait a bit longer. Since teacher recommended us to come to this academy must have its unique aspects. We shouldn't be deceived by superficial appearances. In fact, Tang San was also having doubts in his heart. The principal of this Shrek Academy was indeed a bit crazy. To actually trap a child for 6 years. Lion Douluo looked down at Flender from above, speaking word by word. That child is now a person of Spirit Hall. As his senior, I naturally have to seek justice for him. Finished speaking, Lion Douluo raised his fist and punched Flender. He didn't use a shred of spirit power. Before Flender could react, he was sent flying by a single blow. His glasses were shattered beyond recognition. Flender lay flat on the ground, his face bruised and battered, the blood at the corner of his mouth mixed with dirt covering his entire face. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about resisting. But the coercion of a titled Douluo pressed down on him like a mountain. He couldn't even release his spirit, and could only be beaten while pinned to the ground like a dead dog. Lion Douluo jumped over and smashed a fist onto his shoulder, with a crisp crack of bone. Flender groaned softly, but cursed in his heart. Jai Yi, you brat. If I had known earlier, I shouldn't have been so polite to you. I should have locked you up in the academy, so you wouldn't even be able to run away. Lion Douluo threw another punch, smashing it into his stomach. Flender vomited out the sour water in his stomach. Unconvinced, Lion Douluo let out a cold snort. The moment your eyes rolled, I knew what you were thinking. Flender didn't dare to think anymore. Lion Douluo grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up, swinging left and right with 2 loud slaps. Flender's glasses had long since flown off, his face was swollen like a pig's head, and 2 of his teeth had loosened. Zhao Wuji stood to the side, his eyelids twitching continuously. He wanted to go up and persuade them, but his legs wouldn't listen. One was a titled Douluo, and the other was a spirit saint. There was a gap of 2 major ranks between them. If he went up, it would be no different from delivering food. Zhao Wuji looked away, not daring to watch anymore. Silently saying in his heart, "Old friend, I'm sorry." He also knew about that child Jai Yi back then. 6 years old, twin spirits, innate full spirit power. When Flender told him this news, his first reaction was disbelief. His second reaction was that if such a genius could come to Shrek, it would be great. He had also persuaded Flender, saying that if the other person wasn't willing, don't force it. A forced melon is not sweet. Flender wouldn't listen. Such a genius, once let go, you won't meet a second one in this lifetime. These were Flender's exact words. Zhao Wuji didn't say anything more at the time. Because he also had selfish motives. If such a genius really came to Shrek, the benefits to the academy would be too great. Therefore he chose silence. Silence for 6 years. Now they've come looking for trouble. Sighed. Zhao Wuji sighed. What is meant to be will eventually be. What is not meant to be should not be forced. Flender should understand this principle now, but it's too late. The onlookers among the parents initially found it satisfying and clapped and cheered. But as they watched, they couldn't bear to keep watching. It was too tragic. A middle-aged man was pinned to the ground and beaten for an hour, his face swollen so much that even his own mother wouldn't recognize him. A few soft-hearted parents shook their heads and left with their children. Let's go, stop watching. If we watch any longer, we'll have nightmares tonight. This academy probably won't be able to stay open either. Let's go home. The matter of refunding money, is it still going to be refunded? You dare to go ask, didn't you see that the Lord Spirit Master is in a fit of rage? The crowd gradually dispersed. At the entrance of the huge Shrek Academy, only a few people were still standing. A young girl in a cyan dress, around 11 or 12 years old, with a pure temperament. A young girl in a pink dress was hiding behind a blue-robed youth, her body still trembling. The blue-robed youth protected her, his expression calm, but his gaze very solemn. There was also an extremely voluptuous cat-tailed girl, wearing tight-fitting clothes with astonishing curves, tilting her head to watch Lion Douluo beat someone up, with little expression on her face, as if she were watching something rather uninteresting. The four of them had not left. Lion Douluo shook his hands and loosened his wrists. 1 hour. Punch by punch to the flesh, without using spirit power, pure physical labor. He hadn't felt this kind of refreshing sensation in a long time. He looked down at Flender on the ground. He had already passed out, blood bubbles emerging from his nose like a dead fish. Most of the anger in his heart had been vented. Lion Douluo turned around, preparing to go back. Then he saw those few people. The young girl in the cyan dress. The blue-robed youth and the pink-dressed girl behind him. The cat-tailed girl. Lion Douluo was slightly stunned. These little fellows actually hadn't been scared away. Their courage was indeed not bad. However, his gaze fell upon the pink-dressed girl. His gaze changed. That kind of look was like someone who had walked in the desert for 3 days and 3 nights, suddenly seeing a pool of clear spring water. 100,000-year soul beast. The transformed 100,000-year soul beast. The corners of Lion Douluo's mouth slowly split open, and he strode towards Zyro Wu. Tang-san noticed Lion Douluo's gaze. That wasn't the gaze of looking at a person. That was the gaze of looking at prey. Zyro Wu was trembling. From the very moment Lion Douluo appeared, she had been trembling. Now that Lion Douluo was walking towards her, her legs felt like they were filled with lead, unable to take a single step. She wanted to run, but her body wouldn't obey. A transformed 100,000-year soul beast in front of a titled Douluo was no different from a rabbit. It seemed she was originally a rabbit anyway. Lion Douluo walked up to Zyro Wu, and Tang-san blocked the middle. Tang-san cupped his fists, bending his waist deeply. This humble one is Tang-san, greetings, senior. His voice was very steady, and his expression very respectful. Lion Douluo lowered his head and glanced at him. Blue robes, black hair, ordinary looks, but his gaze was indeed quite bright. But no matter how bright it was useless. Lion Douluo flicked his hand. Tang-san's body flew out, rolled twice on the ground, and only stopped after hitting a rock. However, he was not injured. Lion Douluo hadn't used much force. But the meaning of this flick was very clear. Don't block the way. P.S. Seeking recommendation votes, monthly votes, chapter updates, and adding to the bookshelf. Chapter 13, A Mere Lion, and You Dare to Harm My Son. Lion Douluo crouched down and looked at Zyro Wu closely. A pink dress, a long scorpion tail braid, and big eyes. She was quite pretty indeed. But in his eyes, this wasn't a young girl. It was a 100,000-year spirit ring and a piece of 100,000-year spirit bone. A 100,000-year soul beast transformation. Lion Douluo's tone carried mockery. You really have some nerve. Zyro Wu's lips trembled, and tears welled up in her eyes. She wanted to say something, but her throat felt as if it were being choked, unable to make a sound. She had seen titled Douluo before. In the Stardew Great Forest, she had seen them from afar. But that was across a distance of dozens of zhang, and she had her mother, Da Ming, and Ming by her side. Right now, a titled Douluo was squatting right in front of her, within arm's reach. That sense of oppression felt like the sky was collapsing. Zyro Wu gave up resisting. She couldn't escape. Let alone escaping, she couldn't even move. Lion Douluo was very satisfied with her reaction. Fear, despair, surrender. This was how a prey should look. He reached out and grabbed the back of Zyro Wu's collar, lifting her up like a rabbit. Zyro Wu's body hung in midair, and her tears finally fell, splashing onto the ground one by one. Stop! Tang San's voice came from behind. Lion Douluo stopped in his tracks and glanced back. The youth in blue climbed up from the ground, his body covered in mud and grass clippings, but his gaze was very firm. Let Zyro Wu go. His voice wasn't loud, but every word was pronounced clearly. Lion Douluo raised an eyebrow. This brat is so arrogant. Hearing Tang San's voice, Zyro Wu suddenly snapped back to reality. She struggled to turn her head and saw Tang San standing there, his entire body trembling. His eyes were filled with anger. A 12-year-old youth, facing a titled Douluo, showed not a shred of cowardice. Zyro Wu's tears flowed even more fiercely. Little San, you must leave quickly. Her voice was very soft, so soft it was almost inaudible. Don't worry about me, hurry up and leave. Tang San did not leave. He took a step forward. Lion Douluo looked at him, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. Brat, do you know what she is? Tang San clenched his teeth. No matter what she is my younger sister. Younger sister, Lion Douluo laughed. Brat, do you know that this lass is a 100,000-year soul beast in human form? Her age is thousands or tens of thousands of times yours, and you treat her as your younger sister. Tang San's pupils constricted slightly. A 100,000-year soul beast. He knew about 100,000-year soul beast transformations. He had seen it in books. His teacher had also mentioned it. But he had never imagined that Zyro Wu would be a spirit beast. The girl who followed behind him shouting, Little San, the girl who liked eating carrots, the girl who always wanted to be the boss, was a 100,000-year soul beast. Tang San was stunned for a moment. But it was only for a moment. No matter what she is, Tang San's voice was steadier than before. She is Zyro Wu, my younger sister. Please let her go. Lion Douluo looked at him for several seconds. Then he laughed, laughing loudly. Interesting. He turned his head to look at the few others. The young girl in the cyan dress stood in place. Although she hadn't heard the conversation clearly, she was somewhat moved looking at this scene. How touching. The cat-tailed girl tilted her head as she watched all this, her expression still unchanged, and she hadn't heard Lion Douluo's words either. Lion Douluo withdrew his gaze and looked back at Tang San. Brat, do you know who you are talking to? Tang San took a deep breath. I know Senior is a titled Douluo. Then you still dare to block me? I dare. Lion Douluo was somewhat angered by this audacious brat. He had lived for over 200 years. He had seen people who weren't afraid of death, but never anyone quite this fearless. A 12-year-old brat who wasn't even a spirit elder dared to be so arrogant. Front of a titled Douluo. Fine, Lion Douluo nodded and casually tossed Zyro Wu to the side. Since you brat are not afraid of death, this old man will grant your wish. Zyro Wu fell to the ground. Instead of running, she shouted towards Tang San. No, Little San, run. Tang San didn't look at her, nor did he run. His hands were behind his back, his fingers already hooked onto the triggers of several hidden weapons. Powder shooting shadow. Dragon beard needle. Silent sleeve dart. Boot concealed flying dagger. He didn't know if he could injure a titled Douluo. But how would he know without trying? Lion Douluo rubbed his palms together and walked slowly toward Tang San. Tang San's breathing grew heavier and heavier, and his forehead was covered in sweat. Just as Lion Douluo was less than 2 zhang away from Tang San. Your Excellency. Zhao Wuji's voice came from the side, carrying a hint of urgency. Lion Douluo stopped in his tracks and tilted his head to glance at him. Ahem. Zhao Wuji opened his mouth, the expression on his face very complicated. He had wanted to say something. But when Lion Douluo's gaze swept over, all his words stuck in his throat. You guys want to block me too? Lion Douluo's tone was very calm. Zhao Wuji shut his mouth. Xiao Xin lowered his head. Li Yusong took a step back. No one dared to speak. Lion Douluo let out a cold snort and cast his gaze back onto Tang San. Brat, any last words? Tang San's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what to say. Just as Lion Douluo took a step forward and raised his fist to deal a fatal blow to Tang San. A massive clear sky hammer fell from the sky and smashed down right in front of Lion Douluo. Lion Douluo's expression changed drastically as he abruptly retreated a few steps. Who is it? Right at this moment, the sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds blocked the sun. Blood-red thunder surged within the clouds. Laughter descended from the heavens, shaking the ground so hard it trembled. That laughter was wild and arrogant, carrying an unsuppressible overbearing aura and killing intent. Hearing this voice, Tang San was struck as if by lightning, abruptly raising his head. That voice, he was too familiar with it. The laughter after drinking, the humming while forging iron, the snoring when drunk and passed out on the threshold. But it had never been this loud, never had this much power. Dad! Tang San shouted out, his voice filled with disbelief. The thunder in the sky grew even denser. A figure descended from the sky, walking down step by step. Every step trod upon the void realm, ripples spreading out beneath his feet, as if walking on invisible stairs. Spirit rings unfolded one ring after another. Yellow's yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. 9 spirit rings. The last one was red. A 100,000-year spirit ring. That figure paused in midair. Clad in a tattered black robe, with messy hair and a stubbly beard. But those eyes were filled with an overbearing aura. Tang Hao slightly raised his hand, and that clear sky hammer returned to his grasp once more. Blood-red thunder crackled across the hammer's body, illuminating half of his face. Hall of Elders, Tang Hao's voice was low, sounding like gravel ground out from his throat. What a fine Hall of Elders! Chapter 14 Lion Douluo battles Clear Sky Douluo Tang Hao. Lion Douluo's pupils constricted slightly. He is Clear Sky Douluo. Tang Hao. A level 95 attack system titled Douluo. The man who single-handedly severely wounded Qian Zunji, the former Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, back in the day. Lion Douluo snorted coldly. His expression didn't change, but he was already calculating in his heart. His spirit ring configuration was yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. In Tang Hao's spirit ring configuration, there was a red one. Just on this aspect alone, he lost. What's more, Tang Hao's clear sky hammer was the world's #1 tool spirit. In a direct head-on clash, he had no chance of winning. But Lion Douluo did not back down. His own spirit power was at the peak of level 97. Could he really not beat a level 95? Moreover, as the 4th priest of the Hall of Elders, taking a step back would disgrace more than just himself. Tang Hao, Lion Douluo's voice deepened. Are you trying to make an enemy of our Hall of Elders? Tang Hao looked at him, the corner of his mouth twitching into a smile that looked uglier than crying. Hall of Elders. He repeated those 3 words, as if tasting something revolting. So what? Lion Douluo's face darkened. In that case, there is nothing left to talk about. Saying this, Lion Douluo revealed his spirit. A huge phantom of a golden lion emerged behind him, its mane bristling as it roared toward the sky. 9 spirit rings lit up simultaneously, and golden spirit power blazed on the surface of his body. The entire sky plunged into an even deeper darkness. On one side was the golden lion phantom, on the other, blood-red lightning. As the auras of the 2 titled Douluos collided, cracks split across the ground, and distant trees snapped all at once. The several teachers of Shrek Academy were dumbfounded with fright by now. This was the first time they had ever witnessed a battle between titled Douluos. It was truly terrifying. Tangsan stood where he was, his eyes wide. He had never known that his father was a titled Douluo. That scruffy man who drank, forged iron, and passed out drunk on the threshold all day long. That useless dad who couldn't even cook a proper meal or mend clothes. Was a titled Douluo. Tangsan's nose suddenly felt a bit sore, but he held it back. Little San. Tang Hao's voice came from Medea, not loud, but every word was crystal clear. Watch closely. Tang San clenched his fists. This is the true clear sky avatar. Great Sumeru hammer. Saying so, the giant hammer phantom behind Tang Hao violently expanded tenfold. A clear sky hammer that seemed to reach the heavens and touch the earth appeared behind him, with blood-red lightning pouring down from its head like a waterfall. Tang Hao gripped the clear sky hammer with both hands, his muscles bulging and veins popping. He raised the hammer. Lion Douluo did not retreat. Tang Hao would die. The golden giant lion behind him also pounced forward, rushing straight toward the clear sky hammer. The 2 forces collided. Boom! The ground in front of Shrek Academy's entrance was overturned, sending rubble and dirt flying into the air. Tang San was pushed back several feet by the shockwave, rolling across the ground multiple times before coming to a stop. Zyro Wu, the cat-tailed girl, and the girl in the cyan dress raised their hands. Fortunately, they were shielded behind teacher Zhao Wuji and the others, otherwise their fate would have been the same as Tang San's. However, the group did not fare easily either. Zhao Wuji had to activate his Wuhan True Body, along with the other teachers, just to block the shockwave. After the dust settled, Lion Douluo stood in place, a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Tang Hao still hovered in Medea, completely uninjured. But his right hand behind his back trembled slightly. The winner and loser could be seen at a single glance. The Grand Fourth Priest of the Hall of Elders, Lion Douluo, is this all you've got? Tang Hao spoke in a mocking tone. Lion Douluo wiped the blood from his mouth, his face turning livid. He was deeply unwilling to accept it. He was a Grand Level 97 titled Douluo, who would accept being mocked like this by a Level 95. Again, Lion Douluo kicked off the ground and charged toward Tang Hao once more. The giant lion phantom behind him opened its gaping maw, glaring golden light condensing on its fangs. Tang Hao sneered coldly, holding the clear sky hammer horizontally before him as blood-red lightning burst across the hammerhead. Boom! Lion Douluo still couldn't breach Tang Hao's attack. Gritting his teeth, he charged forward again. Boom! Again. Boom! Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. Lion Douluo crashed onto the ground, smashing a giant crater beneath his feet as rubble scattered everywhere. Tang Hao stood in Medea, his expression unchanged. Still want to continue? Tang Hao asked in a flat tone, adopting the posture of a supreme powerhouse. Lion Douluo glanced at Tang Hao, then looked over at Zyro Wu in the distance. As expected of Clear Sky Douluo, continuing the fight would only end in mutual destruction. As for that transformed 100,000-year soul beast, it seemed he wouldn't be able to take her today. Lion Douluo took a deep breath and recalled his spirit. Tang Hao, the Hall of Elders, will remember this score today. Tang Hao said nothing. Lion Douluo turned and left. After taking 2 steps, he paused, turning back to glance at Zyro Wu with a chilled seriousness that sent shivers down one's spine. He was going to commit the appearance of this 100,000-year soul beast to memory. Once he returned to the Hall of Elders and reported to the High Priest, he would come back to claim this 100,000-year soul beast. Chilled to the bone by that glare, Zyro Wu hid behind Zhao Wuji. Lion Douluo departed. Tang Hao slowly descended to the ground, stepping into the rubble and soil, and suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. Clearly, his earlier calmness had all been an act staged for Lion Douluo. Secretly using ring explosion combined with a relapse of his old injuries. Tang Hao's aura at this moment was weak to the absolute extreme. Had Lion Douluo seen through his injuries and fought him for a few more rounds, he might truly have been unable to hold out. "Dad," Tang San called out anxiously. Tang Hao waved his hand. "It's nothing, your old man isn't going to die yet." Father and son looked at each other. At this moment, Tang San had a split lip, a bloody scratch on his face, dirt and grass clippings all over his clothes, and a large patch of skin scraped off his knees. He looked extremely battered and wretched. Tang Hao reached out and patted Tang San on the head. "Not hard like patting a fool. Not bad, you didn't embarrass your old man." Tang San froze for a moment. He had thought his father would scold him. Scold him for overestimating himself, for meddling in other people's business, for almost getting himself killed. But Tang Hao didn't scold him for anything at all. Tang San's nose felt sore once more. But he held it back. Tang Hao's gaze passed over Tang San and landed on Zyro Wu. The girl in the pink dress hid behind Zhao Wuji, poking half her head out, her eyes red and tear tracks still wet on her face. Tang Hao stared at her for 2 seconds. A 100,000-year soul beast. Although she concealed it well, in front of a titled Douluo, she couldn't hide it. Tang San noticed his father's gaze, and his heart violently clenched. His father was also a titled Douluo. The temptation of a 100,000-year soul beast to a titled Douluo was unimaginable. A 100,000-year spirit bone. This was something no spirit master could resist. Countless thoughts flashed through Tang San's mind. Would his father act? Would he also be like that titled Douluo, wanting to capture Zyro Wu? If his father took action right now. Tang San shifted his body a step to the side, standing between Tang Hao and Zyro Wu. Seeing his son's action, Tang Hao's brows furrowed slightly. Tang San's eyes changed. It was no longer the reliance and trust he had shown when looking at his father just now, but held an added trace of wariness. Tang Hao fell silent for 2 seconds. Chapter 15, Still Choosing Shrek, Lion Douluo returns to the Hall of Elders. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile, but an indescribable bitter chuckle. "Did you think I was going to hurt her?" Tang San said nothing, but he did not step aside. Tang Hao shook his head. "Little San, your old man may not be a good person, but I'm not low enough for that." He looked into Tang San's eyes. "She's your sister, I won't touch her." Tang San stared at his father for several seconds, feeling a bit awkward. He had been seen right through. Tang San then stepped aside, though not completely, only by half a step. Tang Hao saw all this and felt a sting in his heart. When had his own son grown so wary of him? "Leave this academy, don't stay here," Tang Hao said, getting straight to the point. Tang San frowned. "Why, Dad? Didn't you see, the people from the Hall of Elders already know you're my son?" Tang Hao's voice grew dark. "If you keep staying here, something bad will happen sooner or later. Then I can change my identity." "Little San, when did you become so disobedient?" Tang Hao interrupted him. Tang San bit his lip. He knew his father made sense. But he didn't want to leave. Grandmaster had recommended he come here, saying this academy had something unique, that would allow him to grow rapidly. He trusted Grandmaster's judgment. "I'm sorry, Dad, but I'm not leaving." Tang Hao's eyes widened. "What did you say?" "I said I'm not leaving." Tang San raised his head and looked straight into his father's eyes. "Grandmaster recommended I come here, so there must be a good reason. I don't want to give up just because I'm afraid." Tang Hao stared at him for several seconds, clenching his fist before slowly releasing it. "You, Dad," Tang San interrupted. "I want to become strong." Tang Hao's words caught in his throat. "Become strong." Hearing those words from a 12-year-old carried a different weight. Because Tang Hao knew why he wanted to become strong. Tang Hao fell silent. Only after a long while did he speak. "What about that girl?" He looked towards Zyro Wu. "She can't stay here." Tang San glanced back at Zyro Wu. Zyro Wu stepped out from behind Zhao Wuji, walked to Tang San's side, and grabbed his sleeve. "I'm not leaving." Zyro Wu's voice was still trembling, but her tone was firm. "Wherever little San is, I'll be there too." Tang Hao looked at the two children, each as stubborn as the other. They really weren't afraid to die. "Forget it. Suit yourself." Tang Hao turned around, his back to Tang San. Tang San was stunned. He had thought his father would take him away by force. "Dad." However, Tang Hao's voice came from ahead. "You must promise me one thing." "What is it?" "Stay alive." Tang San's nose strung for the third time. This time he couldn't hold it in. Tears welled up in his eyes and rolled down his cheeks. "MHM." Tang Hao did not turn around. He didn't know how to face his son's tears. This child had grown up without a mother, and as a father, he had given him almost nothing good. He hadn't even given him a proper childhood. Tang Hao strode forward. His figure grew farther, smaller, and finally disappeared at the end of the road. Tang San stood where he was, staring in the direction his father had vanished, motionless for a long time. Zyro Wu tugged gently on his sleeve. "Little San." Tang San snapped back to reality and wiped his face. "I'm fine." He turned around and looked at Shrek Academy. A dilapidated gate, a crooked wooden plaque, and ground covered with rubble and dirt. Flender was still lying on the ground, unconscious. Dai Mubai leaned against a tree trunk, dried blood clinging to the corner of his mouth. Several teachers were gasping heavily, clearly not yet recovered from the ordeal. Tang San took a deep breath. This academy must truly be special. Zhao Wuji stood up and walked over to Tang San and the others. He sighed deeply and asked once more, "Are you kids still willing to join our Shrek Academy now?" "My name is Ning Rongrong, and I am willing," replied the young girl in the cyan dress, stepping forward first. If this teacher hadn't shielded them earlier, she probably would have been injured as well. Hearing this, Zhao Wuji nodded with gratification. Then his gaze turned to the others. "I am willing, Zhu Zhuqing," the cat-tailed girl responded coldly, sharing Ning Rongrong's thoughts. "Teacher, my name is Tang San, and this is my sister Zyro Wu. We are willing too." Tang San clutched his chest as he helped Zyro Wu up. Good, good, good." Tears welled up in Zhao Wuji's old eyes. With his keen eye, he had long seen that these kids possessed extraordinary talent. Fortunately, the academy didn't lose so many fine talents because of Flender. "Let's go, let me lead you inside." Saying that, Zhao Wuji picked up the unconscious Flender and walked into the academy. The other teachers also supported each other as they entered the academy. Tang San exchanged glances with the others, nodding slightly. They followed behind. 2 days later. On the plaza in front of the Hall of Elders, Jai Yi was sparring back and forth with Demon Douluo. Calling it back and forth was generous. In truth, Demon Douluo was suppressing his strength to the Spirit King level to serve as Jai Yi's sparring partner. The void sword carved transparent arcs through the air, each swing producing the buzzing hum of distorted space. Demon Douluo parried left and right with his coiling dragon rod, feeling immensely frustrated. This kid's sword bypassed defense entirely, so he didn't dare block it directly and could only dodge. A titled Douluo being pressed hard by a foreign spirit ancestor, no matter how one looked at it, the sight was utterly absurd. The maidservants watching nearby held fruit platters and tea trays, their eyes completely glued to Jai Yi. Is young Master Jai wearing a new uniform today? It fits him so well. Look at how he looks when sweating, he's so attractive. That waist, those broad shoulders, ah. Demon Douluo grew angrier as he fought, and swept his rod out with the power of a spirit emperor. Jai Yi's second spirit ring flared brightly. With a flash, he reappeared 30 feet behind Demon Douluo. The void power on his sword tip still lingering. Sania, you broke the rules. I didn't break the rules, I'm teaching you the harsh realities of the world, Demon Douluo claimed, completely unabashed. Just as Jai Yi was about to talk back, the main gates of the Hall of Elders suddenly swung open. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Lion Douluo walked in step by step, clutching his chest. His complexion was terrible, his lips pale, and his left arm was wrapped in bandages through which blood was seeping. Even his gait was off, his right leg seemed unable to bear weight, making him limp heavily. Lion Douluo raised his head, and seeing everyone staring at him, forced a faint tug at the corners of his mouth. Everyone's here. Demon Douluo was the first to rush over. Old Xung, what happened to you? Guangling Douluo leaped down from his chair. Who beat you up like this? Qingluan Douluo straightened up from the pillar, his gaze turning cold. Thousand Jun Douluo walked over as well. Jai Yi sheathed the void sword and quickly walked over. He looked at the injuries on Lion Douluo, his mind racing rapidly. Chapter 16, The Waterfall Behind Saint Spirit Village. An opportunity no less than a 100,000-year soul beast. When Lion Douluo went to Shrek Academy to teach Flender a lesson, there was no way he was injured by Flender and the others. Unless Tang San. In that case, Tang San has already stayed at Shrek Academy by now. And Zyro Wu must be by Tang San's side. When Lion Douluo went to teach Flender a lesson, with his strength as a titled Douluo, he would naturally be able to tell that Zyro Wu was a 100,000-year soul beast in human form. He would then definitely make a move against Zyro Wu. And Tang San would definitely try to stop him. And then, Tang Hao. Jai Yi's pupils contracted slightly. He had guessed it. Lion Douluo's injuries were inflicted by Tang Hao. So the current timeline is right after Tang San joined Shrek Academy. Jai Yi's fists slowly tightened. It was all his own carelessness for not thinking of this. Lion Douluo had gone to Shrek just to vent frustration on his behalf. This debt was tied to him. Senior Lion, Jai Yi said in a quiet voice. Who was it that injured you? Lion Douluo glanced at him and waved his hand. Let's go inside first. Several of them walked into the Hall of Elders. Lion Douluo sat down in a chair, took a large gulp of tea handed to him by a maid, and then finally spoke. At Shrek Academy, I discovered a 100,000-year soul beast in human form. As soon as these words were uttered, their entire Hall of Elders fell silent. The expressions in the eyes of the several elders changed simultaneously. A 100,000-year soul beast in human form. Everyone present knew what that meant. A 100,000-year spirit ring and a 100,000-year spirit bone. These were treasures that even a titled Douluo would fight tooth and nail for. However, their excitement quickly turned into confusion. Lion Douluo was a rank 97 titled Douluo. A 100,000-year soul beast in human form was nowhere near its peak strength and could not possibly be his match. So how did he get injured? Qingluan Douluo was the first to ask. A soul beast in human form has limited strength. How could you be injured? Lion Douluo's expression darkened. I ran into Clear Sky Douluo. The expressions of the elders all changed at once. Tang Hao, the same one who back then Guangling Douluo stopped halfway through his sentence. Lion Douluo nodded. Tang Hao's son is very close with that 100,000-year soul beast. Just as I was about to capture that soul beast, Tang Hao appeared. He paused, his voice dropping slightly lower. I exchanged a few moves with him, and I was at a disadvantage every time. When Lion Douluo said this, there was no expression on his face, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped his teacup. The Grand Fourth Elder of the Hall of Elders, a rank 97 titled Douluo, lost to a rank 95 Tang Hao. Saying this out loud was humiliating. But it was the truth. Guangling Douluo walked over and patted his shoulder without saying anything, but his meaning was clear. Tang Hao was just a lunatic. In that case, we old fellows should go together to confront Tang Hao. Guangling Douluo turned to look at the other elders. No matter how good he is at fighting, can he fight all 5 of us alone? Thousand Jun Douluo and Demon Douluo exchanged a look, and nodded simultaneously. Kingluan Douluo didn't speak, but he straightened his posture, making his stance clear. Lion Douluo looked up at them, his lips twitching slightly, but he didn't stop them. Jia Yi stepped forward. Seniors, there's no need to go. Everyone turned to look at him. Jia Yi's voice was very calm. Tang Hao won't wait around in the same spot for you to find him. A man like him leaves right after fighting, and won't leave any traces behind for tracking. Demon Douluo frowned. Then what should we do? Are we supposed to just swallow our anger for nothing? Lion Douluo was injured, while venting frustration on Jia Yi's behalf. This grievance couldn't just be swallowed down like that. Jia Yi shook his head, the corners of his mouth curving slightly upward. Of course not. His eyes grew deep, as if he were recalling something. I can tell you a place that Tang Hao is bound to go to. The opportunity there is no worse than a 100,000-year soul beast. The expressions of all the elders changed at the same time. An opportunity no less than a 100,000-year soul beast. Coming from the mouth of a 12-year-old boy, these words sounded like bragging no matter how one listened. However, the expression on Jia Yi's face didn't look like he was joking. To be safe regarding this matter, let Senior Gold Crocodile go in person. Jia Yi turned around and looked toward the top of the steps. Qian Daily was standing there without anyone knowing when he arrived, clad in a white robe with white hair, his hands tucked behind his back. Gold Crocodile Douluo stood beside him, his black hair combed impeccably, his eyes sharp. Qian Daily looked at Jia Yi, a hint of interest in his eyes. What place is it? Tell me about it. Jia Yi took a deep breath. In the southwestern part of the Heaven Dew Empire, Fasanua Province, near Niuding City, there is a village called Saint Spirit Village. Qian Dailu's brow twitched slightly, as if he had never heard of that name. There is a mountain behind the village, and inside the mountain is a waterfall. Hidden in the cave behind the waterfall is an opportunity. Jia Yi described it in great detail, so detailed it was as if he had personally been there. Gold Crocodile Douluo remained silent for a moment. With Senior Gold Crocodile's strength, once you reach that place, you will naturally discover it, Jia Yi added. Demon Douluo shuffled over from the side and slung an arm around Jia Yi's shoulders. How do you know about this, kid? Have you been there? Jia Yi smiled. Take a guess. Demon Douluo stared at him for 2 seconds before bursting into loud laughter. Fine, you've got secrets you won't tell, so I won't ask. Either way, you're one of us now, so your secrets are our secrets. Jia Yi was caught off guard for a moment by those words, then smiled and shook his head. Qian Daily looked at Gold Crocodile Douluo. Second brother, since that's the case, make a trip there. Gold Crocodile Douluo nodded slightly. Yes, big brother. He didn't ask further questions, nor did he hesitate. If Qian Daily said it, he would go. This was the resolve of the second elder. Guangling Douluo suddenly spoke up. What about Tang Hao's son then, and that 100,000-year soul beast? Are we just going to leave them alone? Everyone looked at Jia Yi again. The corner of Jia Yi's mouth lifted slightly. Leave them to me. He turned around and looked at Kyan Dalu, his eyes calm yet earnest. Kyan Dalu looked into those eyes, stayed silent for a few seconds, and then nodded. A genius cannot be raised in a greenhouse forever. This was a truth he had summarized after living for over 200 years. No matter how good Jia Yi's talent was, if he stayed in the Hall of Elders sparring with a few old men all the time, he would be ruined sooner or later. He needed real opponents, real battles, and real growth. Very well, Kyan Dalu spoke. Do you need an elder to protect you in secret? Jia Yi shook his head. No need. His voice was not loud but very firm. After these past days of actual combat with several elders, his battle experience had grown much stronger than before. His understanding of spirit had also deepened. Even if he encountered an opponent of Flender's level again, he wouldn't be caught easily. He might even kill them instead. Of course, titled Douluo were an exception. However, a titled Douluo wouldn't have nothing better to do than capture a four-ring spirit ancestor like him. Kyan Dalu looked at him, the corner of his mouth curving up slightly. Go ahead. Yes. Chapter 17, Arriving in Soto City. Enning Rongrong. Jia Yi turned around and walked outside. After taking a few steps, Demon Douluo called out from behind him. Kid, be careful. Without turning his head, Jia Yi waved his hand. Got it. He walked out of the main gates of the Hall of Elders and narrowed his eyes slightly. Shrek Academy. Tang San. Zhu Xiuqing. Enning Rongrong. Xiao Wu. Dai Mubai. Ma Hongjin. Oscar. Finally, he could meet the protagonist group. He was indeed looking forward to it. 2 days later. Soto City. A luxurious carriage slowly pulled to a stop. Jia Yi lifted the carriage curtain and jumped down. He still wasn't wearing a mask this time. He had also changed out of his deep blue Spirit Hall student uniform, wearing plain grey hemp clothes, similar to the set he wore on the day he escaped. However, the same clothes produced completely different effects on different people. The simple cloth clothes gave him a somewhat cool and distant aura, and the belt casually tied around his waist made his waist look even leaner and sharper. His hair wasn't tied up, cascading over his shoulders, its strands fluttering gently as the wind blew by. The moment Jia Yi's feet touched the ground, several young girls on the roadside stopped in their tracks. Even several passing carriages nearby came to a halt. Young Master, a young lady of high status wearing a silk dress, poked her head out of a carriage, clutching a silk handkerchief in her hand. Is this your first time in Soto City? Would you like me to guide you? Jia Yi glanced at her, bowed slightly, and curved the corners of his mouth to a perfect angle. Thank you for your kindness, young miss, but I know the way. The young lady's face flushed bright red instantly, and she twisted the silk handkerchief in her hands into a twist. Not wanting to be outdone, another young lady stepped directly down from her carriage, holding a cup of tea in her hand. Young master, you must be tired from traveling. Have a cup of tea to moisten your throat. Jia Yi shook his head. No need to trouble you, young miss. Yet another young lady pushed forward, holding a folding fan. Oh my young master, look how hot the weather is, let me fan you. Thank you, but there's no need. Young master, where are you from? What brings you to Soto City? Young master, which shop made your clothes? Although the fabric is ordinary, it looks so handsome on you. Young master, where are you staying tonight? My family owns an inn just a short distance ahead. It's very quiet and elegant. Why don't we? Jia Yi declined them one by one, his tone polite and his smile gentle, flawless in every aspect. Yet it was precisely this humble and courteous attitude that made those young ladies adore him even more. So handsome yet so polite, it was practically lethal. However, Jia Yi was not about to give them a chance. He quickened his pace, sighing softly in his heart. Sigh. Being handsome is a sin in itself. After escaping the crowd, Jia Yi walked forward along the main street. The southern part of Soto City was far livelier than the northern part. The roadside was filled with small stalls selling food, cloth, and sundries, with hawking cries rising and falling continuously. Before he had walked very far, he suddenly smelled a sweet and fragrant aroma. Turning his head to look, he saw a candied hawthorn stall by the roadside. The vendor was an old man, holding up a straw target and calling out loudly. "Candied hawthorns, sweet and big candied hawthorns, 2 bronze coins a stick." Standing beside the candied hawthorns was a young girl. Wearing a cyan dress with light grey long hair, she looked to be around 12 years old. Holding a stick of candied hawthorns in one hand, she was taking big bites out of it. In her other hand, she held a small paper bag filled with freshly roasted sugar chestnuts, steaming hot. Jia Yi's footsteps paused for a moment. "Enning Rongrong, the little princess of the 7 treasure glazed tile school." In the original novel, Flenda punished her and Oscar to run laps, but she slipped off to Soto City to eat and play before finishing even 2 laps. "Looks like today is the day." Jia Yi looked at her for 2 seconds, withdrew his gaze, and continued walking forward. Enning Rongrong took a bite of her candied hawthorns, and just as she was about to take a second bite, she caught sight of a figure out of the corner of her eye. Plain grey clothes, black hair scattered over his shoulders, and a slim yet upright figure from behind. She subconsciously looked up. Jia Yi was passing right in front of her, his profile sharply defined under the sunlight, with long eyelashes, a straight nose, and a smooth jawline. Enning Rongrong froze on the spot instantly. She had seen many handsome boys. The 7 treasure glazed tile school did not lack outstandingly handsome disciples, and the so-called young talents her father introduced to her weren't bad either. But there was never one that completely entranced her. Jia Yi ignored her completely, walking past her without stopping. By the time Ning Rongrong snapped back to reality, that grey figure had already walked several paces away. This made her somewhat angry. This guy didn't even give her a single glance. It was always her turn to ignore others. Nobody had ever ignored her before. "Hey you, stop right there." Jia Yi didn't stop. Enning Rongrong's eyes widened. "Didn't he hear?" "Impossible," she shouted so loudly. "Stop right there, I'm talking to you." Jia Yi took another 2 steps. Enning Rongrong casually threw away her candied hawthorns, grabbed her skirt, chased after him, and blocked Jia Yi in a single bound. "Didn't you hear me telling you to stop?" Jia Yi stopped and looked down at her. His gaze was cool and distant, yet not lacking in politeness. "Young miss, is there something I can help you with?" Enning Rongrong opened her mouth, suddenly realizing she didn't know what to say. She called for him to stop, and then what? I shouted at you just now, why didn't you stop?" Jia Yi said calmly, "There are so many people here, how was I to know who young miss was calling out to?" Enning Rongrong was stunned for a moment, and turned her head to look around. The street was indeed busy with people coming and going, vegetable sellers, cloth buyers, porters, strollers, at least dozens of people. It seemed he really might not have heard. She felt a little embarrassed, but quickly puffed out her flat chest again. "Wells, you hear me now?" Jia Yi looked at her without speaking. Enning Rongrong felt a little creeped out by his gaze, but refused to back down verbally. "Where are you going?" Jia Yi raised an eyebrow slightly. "Does that have anything to do with you, young miss?" Enning Rongrong choked on her words. No one had ever spoken to her like this since she was little. Just as she was about to explode, Jia Yi spoke again. "I am going to Shrek Academy." Enning Rongrong's eyes immediately lit up. "Shrek Academy? He's also going to Shrek Academy. Doesn't that mean they will see each other often from now on?" She tried hard to press down her smile, putting on the facade of a senior student. "What a coincidence, I am a student of Shrek Academy, I can take you there." Jia Yi took a glance at her and nodded. "Then's thank you for the trouble." Enning Rongrong turned around and walked ahead, her steps becoming much lighter, her cyan dress fluttering back and forth along the street. After taking a few steps, she stole a glance back, only to find Jai looking elsewhere, so she quickly turned her head back. Walk faster, forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. Jai paid no attention to her, following behind her, though his gaze was not on her. He was sensing. His mental force spread outward in all directions like water ripples, covering a range of several hundred feet. Nothing. There was no aura of Flender's spirit. He was far too familiar with the feeling of being monitored. Chapter 18. I'm here to attend Shrek Academy as a visiting student. For 6 years, Flender's owl spirit had hovered over his head every second of every day. That feeling of being constantly watched was something he could never forget for the rest of his life. But now that feeling was gone. Flender actually wasn't around. Jai's brow furrowed slightly. In the original plot, when Ning Rongrong ran laps with Oscar and secretly snuck off to Soto City to eat, drink, and have fun, hadn't Flender been watching her the entire time? Why wasn't he here? His mental force spread out another notch, scanning the area with meticulous care. Still nothing. Jai withdrew his perception, a faint guess forming in his mind. Did Senior Lion hit him that hard? Did he beat Flender so badly he couldn't get up? At the same time, Shrek Academy, the dean's quarters. The room was small, just a bed, a table, and a chair. A few bottles of medicine sat on the table, and a pungent odor of salve hung thick in the air. A figure lay in the bed. Flender. He was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, with only a single eye exposed. He looked entirely like a mummy. Zhao Wuji stood beside the bed, holding a bowl of medicine, letting out a deep sigh. Dane, time to drink your medicine. Flender's exposed eye rolled slightly, and the bandages where his mouth should be twitched, producing an indistinct sound. Put on table. Zhao Wuji set the medicine bowl on the table, shaking his head at Flender's pathetic state. That beating from his crownship had left Flender severely injured. 6 broken ribs, fractures in both arms, torn ligaments in both legs, and not a single inch of unbruised flesh anywhere on his body. A titled Douluo's fists hit solid every time. Not killing him on the spot was already considered showing mercy. Zhao Wuji walked out of the room and gently closed the door. A chubby boy stood near the entrance, looking around 12 or 13 years old, with a round face and small eyes. Ma Hongjin. Teacher Zhao the Dane. He won't die, Zhao Wuji said. But he won't be getting out of bed anytime soon. Ma Hongjun peeked through the crack in the door and shrank his neck back. A titled Douluo was simply terrifying. Fortunately, he hadn't been at the academy that day. Zhao Wuji looked over at the few students currently training in the courtyard. Tang San Dai Mubai, Xu Zhuqing, and Zyro Wu. Where are Ning Rongrong and Oscar? Haven't the two of them returned yet? Zhao Wuji asked. Right as the words left his mouth, a rush of hurried footsteps echoed from the yard entrance. Oscar ran inside. Drenched in sweat, his soaked clothes clung tightly to his back as he rested his hands on his knees, gasping heavily for air. Hi. Once he caught his breath and raised his head, he froze upon realizing everyone was staring at him, before scratching the back of his head awkwardly. Everyone is here. Zhao Wuji looked at him sternly, then glanced up at the sky. The sun was already slanting to the west. Had he made those 2 run laps for a whole afternoon? Where is Ning Rongrong? Zhao Wuji's voice turned cold. Wasn't she with you? Oscar opened his mouth, then closed it again, his expression shifting from awkwardness to panic, and then from panic to guilt. She what? Oscar broke into a cold sweat in his anxiety, but after struggling for a long moment, he couldn't get a single complete sentence out. He couldn't very well say that Ning Rongrong had run less than 2 laps before sneaking off to Soto City to indulge herself, could he? If he did that, how could he face Rongrong ever again? Just as Oscar was at a loss for how to answer, a crisp female voice rang out from the entrance of the courtyard. This young miss didn't return late, did she? Everyone turned their eyes toward the sound. Ning Rongrong stood at the courtyard gate, her teal dress without a single speck of dust. A smug smile rested on her face, her chin held slightly high. She wore a full expression of "the young miss has arrived, clear the way." However, no one's gaze was on her. Behind her stood a person. Wearing grey cloth robes, with black hair scattered over his shoulders, he had a lean and tall figure. He possessed deep features, fair skin, long eyelashes, and a straight nose bridge. Standing there without doing a single thing, he instantly drew the attention of everyone in the courtyard. Zyro Wu opened her mouth, her eyes wide as saucers as she stared dead at Jia Yi's face, unblinking for a long moment. Zhu Zhuqing's initial gaze lingered on Jia Yi's face for 3 seconds before she quickly shifted her eyes away, looking elsewhere. Yet after 2 seconds, her gaze quietly drifted back. A hint of blush flushed across her face. Dai Mubai, seeing Zhu Zhuqing's reaction beside him, felt a wave of jealousy in his heart. The way he looked at Jai, he turned somewhat displeased. This guy, isn't he a little excessively handsome? He, Dai Mubai, was considered a top-tier handsome guy, even in the Star Luo Empire. Then, his hand unconsciously touched his own chin to make sure his jawline was still intact. The instant Zhao Wuji saw Jia Yi, his pupils shrank violently. Jia Yi? Why did he come back? The scene from a few days ago flashed through Zhao Wuji's mind. That titled Douluo descending from the sky, pounding Flender fist by fist, hard against flesh, blood spattering everywhere. That image was something he would never forget in his entire lifetime. And his crownship had come purely to vent anger on Jia Yi's behalf. Zhao Wuji swallowed hard, forcing himself to act calm, though sweat had already begun pouring down his back. Jia Yi noticed Zhao Wuji's gaze, the corners of his lips curving slightly as he took the initiative to speak. "Long time no see, teacher Zhao Wuji." Zhao Wuji's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Long time no see, Jia Yi." He paused, trying hard to make his voice sound normal. "You are..." Before he could finish, Ning Rongrong cut in. "Teacher Zhao, he wants to apply to join our academy." Ning Rongrong's voice carried an excitement she couldn't hide. "Hurry up and accept him." Zhao Wuji looked at her behavior, then glanced at Jia Yi, his brow furrowing. "Apply to Shrek Academy." Flender had pestered Jia Yi for 6 years, using every method available, soft and hard, yet failed to pull this kid into Shrek. Now this kid delivered himself right to their doorstep. Zhao Wuji didn't quite believe it. "Do you really want to join Shrek Academy?" he asked, probing. Jia Yi shook his head slightly. "No, I'm here to learn about your academy's teaching methods." He paused, considering his phrasing. "You can consider it, attending as a visiting student." Zhao Wuji fell silent. A visiting student. Not officially joining. In other words, this kid could leave at any time. Yet he didn't dare to refuse. After all, the dean was still lying in bed right now. "All right," Zhao Wuji nodded, a trace of helplessness in his voice. "If you are willing to come, our Shrek Academy welcomes you." Zhao Wuji looked over at Oscar. "Oscar, take Jia Yi to find a dormitory." Oscar was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. "Oh, okay." He looked at Jia Yi's face, his lips moving as if he wanted to say something, but he refrained. "Follow me then," Oscar said, his voice much lower than usual. Jia Yi nodded and followed behind him. He had never met Oscar. Back when Flender was pestering him, he had never once stepped inside the gates of Shrek Academy. Chapter 19, Insecure Oscar, the Academy Dining Hall. In the entire academy, the only ones who knew him were Flender and Zhao Wuji. None of the others had ever seen him before. The two walked along the path to the dormitories. Oscar walked very slowly, much slower than usual, as if hesitating over something. Jia Yi followed behind him without rushing him. After taking several dozen steps, Oscar finally spoke. What is your relationship with Rongrong?" Jia Yi glanced at him. Oscar's face turned slightly red, filled with insecurity, embarrassment, and anxiety. The corners of Jai Yi's lips curled up slightly. Does Oscar already have feelings for Ning Rongrong? He's worried I'll steal his future girlfriend. I don't know her, Jai Yi said in a flat tone. She came over to strike up a conversation on the way. When she learned I was coming to Shrek Academy, she enthusiastically offered to lead the way. Oscar's footsteps paused for a moment. Strike up a conversation. Enthusiastically led the way. He had known Rongrong for several days, yet she had barely even looked him in the eye. I see. Oscar's voice lowered, carrying an indescribable trace of disappointment. He quickened his pace and walked forward, saying no more. Looking at his back, Jai Yi smiled faintly and said nothing further. Feeling insecure already, the two crossed a small courtyard and arrived in front of a row of low buildings. Oscar pushed open the door to one of them. We're here, nobody usually lives here, so just make do with it. The room was small, with a wooden board bed, a table, and a chair. A hole was torn in the paper pasted on the window, letting the wind blow in and kick up the dust on the table. Jai Yi took a look and nodded. It's pretty good. Oscar stood at the door looking at him, opened his mouth, then closed it again. In the end, he still couldn't hold back. Are you really just here as an auditing student? Jai Yi looked at him, a trace of a smile on his lips. What else? Oscar shook his head. And nothing. He turned and left, taking a few steps before turning back. Dinner is in the main dining hall, don't go to the wrong place. Okay. Oscar left. Jai Yi closed the door, placed his bundle on the table, and looked around the shabby small room. The wooden bed creaked, and one of the table legs was broken, propped up with a brick. A hole was torn through the window paper, and the paint on the doorframe was peeling off in patches. Tusk. It really rivals a school dorm. Jai Yi tidied up briefly. Evening arrived quickly. He dug out a clean set of clothes from his bundle and changed into them. It was still grey cloth clothing, similar in style to the previous one, but lighter in color and with a cleaner collar. His hair was still loosely down, with a few stray strands hanging over his forehead, making him look even more energetic than before. He stood before the broken mirror, glanced at himself, and sighed. Even handsomer. When he pushed open the door and stepped out, several people happened to be walking out in the courtyard. Tang San, Zyro Wu Daimubai, Zhu Zhuqing, Oscar, Ning Rongrong, and Ma Hongjun. The seven of them were walking towards the dining hall together, chatting and laughing. Ning Rongrong walked in the lead, turning back to talk with Zyro Wu while bent over with laughter. She was the first to notice Jai Yi. Jai Yi, over here. Ning Rongrong waved her hand vigorously. Jai Yi smiled faintly and walked over. The others stopped in their tracks as well. Tang San looked at him and nodded slightly as a greeting. Zyro Wu tilted her head, sizing him up from head to toe. Zhu Zhuqing glanced at him. Her eyes lingered on his face for less than a second before shifting away, but her body unconsciously stepped aside to make room for him. Dai Mubai crossed his arms over his chest, looking at Jai Yi with a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. Standing next to Dai Mubai, Oscar looked at Jai Yi with somewhat complex eyes. As for Ma Hongjun, he was too ugly and lacked any presence. Jai Yi walked over and stopped in front of them. My name is Jai Yi. I'm an auditing student. Please take good care of me from now on. Tang San was the first to respond. Hello, I'm Tang San, and this is Zyro Wu. Tang San extended his hand, and Jai Yi shook it. It had to be said that Tang San's hand was very strong, with thick calluses between his thumb and index finger, worn down from holding things year-round. Zyro Wu poked her head out from behind Tang San and waved cheerfully. I'm Zyro Wu, Wu as in dancing. Zhu Zhuqing's voice was very soft. Zhu Zhuqing. After saying her name, she fell silent, her gaze resting on the ground. Dai Mubai didn't introduce himself, his chin slightly raised, looking at Jai Yi with an indescribable look in his eyes. Oscar waved his hand bitterly. I'm Oscar. If you want to eat sausage in the future, you can look for me. Jai Yi glanced at him, the corner of his mouth curving slightly. Enning Rongrong stood to the side with her arms crossed, the corners of her lips lifting slightly. What about me? Jai Yi looked at her. No need to introduce yourself, I already know you. Enning Rongrong smiled triumphantly. That's more like it. I'm Ma Hongzhen. Ma Hongzhen waved from the side as well. The 8 of them walked towards the dining hall together. The dining hall was located at the easternmost side of the academy, a large single-story building with a wooden plaque hanging at the entrance that read Dining Hall in big characters. The handwriting was crooked and messy, clearly Flender's handiwork. Pushing the door open, the inside was spacious, with only a long table placed right in the middle, capable of seating over 10 people. Food was already set on the table, several large plates of dishes, a big bowl of soup, and plenty of rice. Jai Yi took a seat first, choosing a spot slightly to the left of the center. Enning Rongrong sat down to his left without hesitation. Zhu Zhuqing glanced at Ning Rongrong, paused for a moment, and then sat to Jai Yi's right. The 2 girls sat on either side, sandwiching Jai Yi in the middle. Tang San and Zyro Wu sat on the other side, though not directly opposite. Oscar held his bowl, standing by the table in a daze for 2 seconds, before finally sitting opposite Ning Rongrong. Dai Mubai's expression wasn't great as he walked over to sit opposite Zhu Zhuqing, but Zhu Zhuqing didn't glance at him from beginning to end. As for Ma Hongzhen, he was sandwiched between Oscar and Dai Mubai. Before the meal even started, the smell of gunpowder among the seats was already suffocatingly thick. Enning Rongrong picked up her chopsticks, and her first action was not to eat herself, but to pick up a piece of braised pork and put it into Jai Yi's bowl. Jai Yi, try this, it tastes pretty good. Jai Yi looked down at the meat in his bowl, then raised his head to look at Ning Rongrong. Enning Rongrong smiled at him. Zhu Zhuqing didn't say anything, but silently pushed the plate of greens in front of her towards Jai Yi. That plate of greens had originally been closest to Dai Mubai. After Zhu Zhuqing pushed it over, only a small dish of pickles was left in front of Dai Mubai. Dai Mubai's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. Oscar picked up a pork rib and took a couple of bites, chewing without tasting. Being in such a foul mood, he couldn't eat at all. His gaze kept wandering back and forth between Ning Rongrong and Jai Yi. Seeing Ning Rongrong's attentive expression, the pork rib in his mouth tasted more and more flavorless as he chewed. Chapter 20. Conflict breaks out between Ning Rongrong and Dai Mubai. Jai Yi remained calm, eating his food quietly. His eating pace was neither fast nor slow. He chewed every bite carefully, taking the next bite only after finishing the current one. He looked very gentlemanly. Elegant. Enning Rongrong's eyes sparkled brighter and brighter as she looked at him. Zhu Zhuqing occasionally glanced at him before quickly looking away, but a faint curve appeared at the corner of her lips. The more Dai Mubai watched, the angrier he grew. He poked his bowl twice with his chopsticks and cursed under his breath. But what's with all the acting just to eat a meal? His voice was not loud, but in the quiet cafeteria, everyone heard it crystal clear. Jai Yi raised his head and looked at him, a faint smile hanging at the corner of his lips. He did not speak, because he knew he didn't need to say anything. Someone would speak up for him. Sure enough. Slap. Enning Rongrong slammed the table and stood up, her chair falling backward and hitting the ground with a bang. Dai Mubai, what do you mean by that? Dai Mubai looked up at her with hostile eyes. You can't even stand watching someone else eat. Is it because a girl someone likes is picking up food for another guy, making you feel insecure? Enning Rongrong spoke crisp and loud, delivering a harsh slap right to Dai Mubai's face. Dai Mubai's face instantly flushed red, clearly flying into a rage from embarrassment. What does this have to do with you? He suddenly stood up, knocking his chair over as well. This is Shrek Academy, not your 7 treasure glazed tile school. It's not your place to stick your nose into other people's business here. Enning Rongrong laughed out of anger. With her hands on her hips, she tilted her chin even higher. Oh, so just because you can't get the girl, you won't let others talk about it. You can't even handle a young girl, how useless. These words stabbed into Dai Mubai's heart like a knife. His fists clenched with a crackling sound, and spirit power gathered in his right palm. I'm warning you, others might fear your 7-treasure glazed tile school, but I don't. His voice was squeezed out low from his throat. Provoke me and I'll kill you. The moment these words came out, the air in the cafeteria instantly dropped to freezing point. Tang-san put down his chopsticks, his eyebrows furrowing slightly. A hint of coldness appeared in Zhu Zhuking's eyes as she looked at Dai Mubai. Oscar's mouth hung open, his eyes showing hesitation, unsure of what to say. Enning Rongrong, however, wasn't scared in the least. She patted her flat chest, curled her lips, and spoke in a clear, sharp tone. Oh, I'm so scared, Tilda. Dai Mubai's eyes turned blood-red. He clenched his right fist tightly as a layer of golden spirit power coalesced around it, blasting it straight toward Ning Rongrong. Enning Rongrong's smile froze. She hadn't expected Dai Mubai to actually dare make a move. The fist grew larger and larger before her eyes, and an instinctual sense of mortality washed over her. Terrified, she closed her eyes. Boom! A dull thud echoed. Enning Rongrong opened her eyes. Jai Yi had stood up at some point, blocking in front of her. His right hand was clenched into a fist, wreathed in a layer of transparent light. Dai Mubai's fist was halted midair, unable to advance even an inch. Jai Yi's fist was even faster than Dai Mubai's. While blocking Dai Mubai's fist, his other fist had already slammed into Dai Mubai's abdomen. Ugh! Dai Mubai's body flew out like a broken kite, crashing into the cafeteria wall with a heavy, dull thud. Dust fell rustling down from the wall as cracks spread outward from the impact point like a spiderweb. Dai Mubai slid down from the wall, sitting slumped on the ground while clutching his stomach, his face pale as he gasped heavily for air. He raised his head to look at Jai Yi, his eyes filled with disbelief. He hadn't even seen clearly how the other party struck. The cafeteria became so quiet that one could hear the sound of dust settling on the floor. Tang-san looked at Jai Yi, his gaze shifting. He hadn't clearly seen how Jai Yi made his move either. It was too fast. Just how many ranks of spirit power did he have? Enning Rongrong stood behind Jai Yi, staring at his back. His grey cloth clothes, loose black hair, and shoulders that weren't overly broad but were very upright. She swallowed hard, her heart beating rapidly. Not out of fear, but because of something else. Jai Yi pulled back his fist, turned around, and looked down at Ning Rongrong. Are you all right? Enning Rongrong shook her head, her voice a bit quiet. I'm fine. Jai Yi nodded, turned back to sit in his seat, picked up his bowl, and continued eating. As if nothing had happened at all. Dai Mubai was still sitting on the ground, clutching his stomach, unable to stand up for a long time. Tang-san walked over, bent down, and glanced at him. Are you all right? Dai Mubai gritted his teeth, supported himself against the wall as he stood up, and patted off the dust on his body. Without saying a word, he walked back to his seat, sat down, picked up his chopsticks, and lowered his head to eat. Throughout the whole process, he didn't spare Jai Yi a single glance. The atmosphere in the cafeteria became very subtle. No one spoke, there was only the sound of chopsticks tapping against the edges of bowls. Enning Rongrong sat down again, pulled her chair upright, and stole a secret glance at Jai Yi. Then she picked up another spare rib and placed it in Jai Yi's bowl. This time she didn't say anything, but a smile was on her face. Zhu Zhuking didn't push any more dishes over, but her sitting posture leaned slightly toward Jai Yi's side. Oscar looked at Ning Rongrong's hand as she picked up food, lowered his head, and silently ate the small sausage in his bowl that had already gone cold. Tang-san and Zyro Wu ate with their heads down, neither saying a word. Zyro Wu leaned over and lowered her voice. Gee, what's wrong with them? Tang-san also lowered his voice. SHH, eat. Zyro Wu pouted, lowering her head to shovel food into her mouth, but her eyes couldn't help glancing to both sides. Jai Yi completely ignored everything around him, quietly eating his meal. Braised pork, spare ribs, green vegetables, rice. The taste was decent. After dinner, night had completely fallen. In the distant village, a few dog barks could occasionally be heard. Everyone returned to their respective dormitories. Jai stood at the entrance of the boys' dormitory, watching Tang-san and Oscar go in, and watching Daimyobai limp in after them as well. Jai, aren't you going to sleep? Tang-san asked in confusion. Jai shook his head. I'm going to look at the moon for a bit. Tang-san didn't say more and went inside to sleep. As Daimyobai walked past Jai, he intentionally bumped into his shoulder. Jai didn't dodge, nor did he hit back, only letting out a slight smile. Just a clown. Daimyobai gritted his teeth and left. Jai stood at the entrance for a moment, and only after confirming that everyone's aura had settled down did he slowly take a step forward. He didn't return to the dormitory. Bypassing the flower bed in front of the boys' dormitory and crossing an overgrown vacant lot, the girls' dormitory appeared before his eyes. A small two-story building, somewhat newer than the boys' dormitory, but not by much. Several patches of wall plaster had fallen off, and one of the second-floor windows wouldn't close tightly, creaking whenever the wind blew. Jai stood downstairs and looked up. In the room on the left of the second floor lived Ning Rongrong and Xu Xuqing. In the room on the right lived Zyro Wu. A light was still on in Zyro Wu's room, dim yellow light seeping through the window paper, projecting a silhouette sitting on the bed with a long scorpion-tail braid hanging behind her. Not asleep yet. Chapter 21, Zyro Wu, Call Me Master. The corners of Jai's mouth curled up slightly. His first spirit, Space, activated. Transparent spatial power swirled around him, and his body turned illusory. His second spirit, Time, activated. Time paused. Everything within a radius of 30 zhang froze. Leaves blowing in the wind stopped midair, the distant barking of dogs in the village abruptly ceased, and the chirping of insects in the grass vanished instantly. Even the air seemed to solidify. Jai passed through the female dormitory's wall as if stepping through a thin veil. It was effortless. He walked up to the second floor, opened the door to Zyro Wu's room, stepped inside, and closed the door behind him. Zyro Wu sat on her bed, her head lowered, holding a comb suspended in midair with a stray strand of hair caught in its teeth. Time resumed. Who's there? Zyro Wu snapped her head up, the comb falling onto the bed. She saw Jai standing before her, a faint smile playing on his lips. Zyro Wu's pupils contracted sharply. Her mouth gaped open, but she quickly covered it, suppressing her scream. Jai, how did you suddenly appear in my room? Jai glanced at her, reached out, grabbed her wrist, and pulled her up from the bed. Before Zyro Wu could react, Jai dragged her through the wall, leaped out the window, and landed on the open ground outside the female dormitory. Holding her tight, Jai didn't stop and headed straight out of the academy. They crossed the playground, past the crooked wooden sign, walked out the front gates of Shrek Academy, and didn't stop until they reached the old locust tree at the entrance of the village. Zyro Wu had been dragged all the way without her shoes on. Stepping barefoot on the muddy ground, a chill surged from the soles of her feet straight to the top of her head. She yawned, then shook off Jai's grip and glared at him. What are you doing? Why drag me out here in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Jai turned around and looked at her. Jai smiled faintly. To have a heart-to-heart with a human-formed 100,000-year soul beast like you, of course. Zyro Wu's sleepiness instantly vanished. It was as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over her, chilling her from head to toe. Her pupils shrank to pinpoints. Instinctively stepping back 2 paces, she held her arms defensively across her chest, her expression shifting from drowsiness to alertness, and then to a trace of dread. How did he know? That she was a human-formed 100,000-year soul beast. That day, except for Tang-san, no one else had heard what that titled Douluo said. She had never told anyone either. And Tang-san wouldn't say anything either. How on earth did he know? Zyro Wu's mind raced, and suddenly an image flashed through her head. A few days ago, that titled Douluo who descended from the sky, pummeled Flender punch after punch, beating that wretched Dean into a mummy. That titled Douluo had said he was here to vent anger on behalf of a child named Jai Yi. Wait, Jai Yi. It was him. Zyro Wu's gaze grew even more vigilant as she lowered her stance into a defensive posture. You're that Jai Yi. The corners of Jai Yi's mouth curled up slightly. What? Remembered my background now? Zyro Wu didn't answer. Instead, she stared fixedly into his eyes, trying to discern his intentions. But she couldn't find anything. Those eyes were far too calm, as still as a pool of stagnant water, devoid of any emotional fluctuation. Zyro Wu took a deep breath, her voice turning cold. What do you want? If you want to fight, I'm not afraid of you. Jai Yi looked at her, the smile on his lips deepening. He took a step forward. Zyro Wu took a step back. He took another step forward. Zyro Wu took another step back. Her back bumped against the trunk of the old locust tree. There was nowhere left to retreat. Jai Yi stepped up to her, reached out, and patted her head. His fingers brushed through her hair and touched the invisible rabbit ears atop her head. Zyro Wu's body froze. Those rabbit ears were her most sensitive spot. Normally, she wouldn't even let Tang-san touch them. Normally, I don't hit women, Jai Yi said casually. And as for a 100,000-year soul beast like you, I don't have much interest for now. He pulled back his hand and looked down at Zyro Wu, the flavor of his smile changing. How about we play a game? Zyro Wu looked at him guardedly. What game? Zyro Wu, you wouldn't want everyone at Shrek to know that you're a soul beast, would you? Zyro Wu's expression changed instantly. Her lips trembled, her fingers trembled, her entire body trembled. She knew what Jai Yi was talking about. She and Tang-san had lived together for 6 years and were as close as real siblings. Tang-san might not distance himself from her just because she was a soul beast. But what about Ning Rongrong? What about Xu Zhuqing? What about Oscar? What about Dai Mubai? What about Xiao Wuji? Once those people learned she was a 100,000-year soul beast, how would they view her? A human-formed 100,000-year soul beast was nothing more than a walking spirit ring and spirit bone in the human world. She would be hunted down, imprisoned, and slaughtered like prey. Could Tang-san protect her? Tang-san couldn't even defeat Dai Mubai. Countless thoughts rushed through Zyro Wu's head, each one making her shudder. What do you want? Jai Yi smiled. The smile was warm, polite, and gentlemanly. But looking at that smile, Zyro Wu felt only a cold chill run down her spine. It's very simple, Jai Yi's voice was soft. I want you to act like a simping lapdog toward me, right in front of Tang-san. Zyro Wu's eyes widened in shock. Impossible. She rejected him decisively, without a moment's hesitation. Make her do that right in front of little San. Make her act like a simping lapdog to someone else. In his dreams. Jai Yi's smile didn't fade, but his eyes grew a degree colder. Refusing. He turned around and started walking toward Shrek Academy. Then I'll just have to tell everyone about this. His voice drifted back from ahead, not loud, but every word was crystal clear. After all, living with a 100,000-year soul beast means who knows when someone might be eaten. Tang-san might understand you, but can the others? Zyro Wu's feet felt as though nailed to the ground. She couldn't take a single step forward. Jai Yi walked a few paces and slowed his steps. He was waiting. He knew Zyro Wu would call out to him. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Stop right there. Zyro Wu's voice came from behind, choked with tears, anger, resentment, and an indescribable sense of grievance. Jai Yi halted his steps and turned around. Zyro Wu stood where she was, clutching her hem so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She bit her lip until tears began to stream down her face. Jai Yi looked at her without saying a word. Zyro Wu cried for a long time. Finally, she lifted her head, wiped her tears with her sleeve, and spoke in a raspy voice. I'd agree. The corners of Jia Yi's mouth curled up slightly. He had known all along it would end like this. Call me master and let me hear it. Zyro Wu's fingers clenched even tighter, her nails digging into her palms so hard that she winced from the pain. Her lips parted, closed, and parted again. Her face was a storm of struggle and conflict, her heart filled with 1,000,000 refusals, 10,000,000 refusals, 100,000,000 refusals. Chapter 22, Tang San, your head is looking a bit green. But thinking of Tang San, Ning Rongrong, Zhu Zhuqing, and the looks in their eyes. Master. Her voice was extremely quiet, almost inaudible. Like the buzzing of a mosquito. Jia Yi looked at her without saying a word. Zyro Wu took a deep breath, raising her voice slightly. Master. Jia Yi smiled, looking very satisfied. Good girl. He reached out and rubbed Zyro Wu's head again. Zyro Wu bit her lip and didn't pull away. Go on back, Jia Yi said. Starting tomorrow, you know what to do. Zyro Wu nodded, turned around and walked toward Shrek Academy. After a few steps, she stopped and looked back at Jia Yi. Will you? Will I what? Will you tell anyone else? Jia Yi looked at her, the smile on his lips fading slightly as a touch of seriousness entered his eyes. As long as you behave, I won't tell anyone. Zyro Wu stared into his eyes for a few seconds. In those eyes, there was no deception or mockery, only an indescribable sincerity. She lowered her head, whispered, "Thank you," and ran off barefoot. Jia Yi stood under the old locust tree, watching her figure disappear inside the gates of Shrek Academy. Thank you. The smile on Jia Yi's lips slowly faded, his gaze turning tranquil. Zyro Wu, oh Zyro Wu, he muttered to himself, his voice so quiet only he could hear it. Don't blame me. This world was never fair to spirit beasts to begin with. Early the next morning, just as dawn was breaking, everyone arrived at the playground. Tang San was the first to arrive, standing in the center of the playground. Zyro Wu stood beside him, looking downcast. What's wrong, Zyro Wu? Did you not sleep well last night? Tang San asked attentively. It was his first time seeing Zyro Wu like this. Zyro Wu shook her head. I'm fine. After she spoke, Dai Mubai and the others arrived at the playground as well. Morning, Mubai, Tang San greeted him. But Dai Mubai didn't pay attention to him, leaning against the nearby old locust tree by himself with his arms crossed, his expression sour. Tang San was completely bewildered. What was wrong with everyone today? Morning, Tang San. Ning Rongrong skipped over, having changed into a new green dress with her hair neatly combed again, making her look much more refined than yesterday. Morning, Rongrong, Tang San replied with a smile. That was more like it. Ma Hongjun, Zhu Zhuqing, and Oscar all arrived as well. They greeted each other. Just then, Jia Yi walked over as well. He had changed out of his grey hemp clothes into a blue robe. He looked even more handsome now. Unhurried in his steps, a faint smile rested on his face, making him look outrageously handsome. Ning Rongrong's eyes went blank in awe. The corners of Zhu Zhuqing's mouth curled up slightly before quickly returning to a calm expression. Dai Mubai turned his face away to avoid looking at Jia Yi, muttering under his breath. Still refusing to submit. Oscar's gaze shifted back and forth between Ning Rongrong and Jia Yi, a bitter smile rising at the corners of his mouth. Jia Yi walked to the front of the line and stood still. His gaze swept over everyone, finally landing on Zyro Wu. Zyro Wu kept her head lowered, not daring to look at him. Jia Yi's expression shifted slightly, carrying a hint of a threat. Zyro Wu's body trembled slightly. She bit her lip and began to slowly shift to the side. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. She moved away from Tang San's side, walked over next to Jia Yi, and stood still. Tang San froze. He turned to look at Zyro Wu, his eyes filled with confusion. Zyro Wu. Zyro Wu didn't look at him, keeping her head down, wringing her hands in front of her until her fingers were twisted like dough twists. Tang San called out again. Zyro Wu. Zyro Wu's shoulders quivered, but she still didn't raise her head or reply. Ma Hongjun sidled over from the side, slyly nudging Tang San with his elbow, lowering his voice, though just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Tang San, it looks like your wife just ran off with someone else. Tang San's expression changed. He was filled with disbelief. He and Zyro Wu had known each other for 6 years, from age 6 to 12, going to school together, eating together, cultivating together, and walking all the way from New Uding City to Soto City together. He had never once imagined that Zyro Wu would walk away from his side. Zyro Wu, what's wrong with you? Tang San's voice was relatively calm, but his clenched fists betrayed his emotions. Zyro Wu still didn't answer. Her lips trembled slightly and her eyes turned red, but she forced herself not to cry. She didn't dare look at Tang San. She was afraid Jia Yi would tell everyone that she was a 100,000-year soul beast. When that time came, everyone would ostracize her and little San. She couldn't let such a thing happen. The corners of Jia Yi's mouth curled up slightly. He reached out and patted Zyro Wu's hair in front of everyone. His fingers ran through her light brown long hair in a smooth motion, so natural it seemed like the most ordinary thing in the world. Everyone was stunned. Enning Rongrong's eyes widened round, her mouth slightly agape, as her expression turned from shock to confusion, and then from confusion to jealousy. She stomped her foot in anger. Zhu Zhuqing snorted, turning her eyes away from Jia Yi. But the heavy heaving of her chest showed that she was far from calm inside. Leaning against the tree, Dai Mubai saw this and actually smirked slightly. He didn't know why, but seeing Jia Yi pet another girl's head actually gave him an odd sense of satisfaction. Ma Hongjun's mouth formed an O shape, and then he gave a cheeky grin, nudging Tang San with his elbow again. Tang San, your head is looking a bit green. Tang San ignored him. He stared fixedly at Jia Yi's hand, watching it stroke Zyro Wu's head over and over. His fists cracked as he clenched them tight, his knuckles turning white as veins bulged on the back of his hands. But he didn't snap. Deep down, he faintly felt that Zyro Wu must have a reason for doing this. Tang San took a deep breath, repressing the anger rising in his chest, though his clenched fists never loosened. With Jia Yi rubbing her head, Zyro Wu's body was as stiff as a board. She could feel Tang San's gaze fixed on her, piercing her painfully like 2 sharp blades. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. She wanted to cry, but she held it back. She told herself over and over in her heart. For little San, for everyone, she couldn't let anyone find out she was a spirit beast. Jia Yi withdrew his hand, the smile on his lips deepening. He glanced at Zyro Wu. She kept her head lowered without looking at him, but gave a faint nod. Jia Yi averted his gaze, satisfied. The playground was silent for a few seconds. Then heavy footsteps echoed from the direction of the dean's office. Everyone turned their heads. Zhao Wuji walked over. He walked to the front of the line, stood still, and swept his gaze over everyone. His eyes lingered on Jia Yi for an extra second before moving on. Today's training task. Midway through Zhao Wuji's sentence, a hand was raised. Oscar. Zhao Wuji frowned. Oscar, what is it? Oscar swallowed hard, a complex expression on his face. Excitement, nervousness, and a bit of embarrassment. Teacher Zhao, I've broken through to level 30. Chapter 23, Provoking Kanghui Academy. It was quiet for a moment. Good, Zhao Wuji slammed his hand down, his voice as loud as thunder. Good, excellent. He paced back and forth a couple of steps, the muscles on his face twitching. All right, today's mission has changed. We are going to the Stardew Great Forest to obtain Oscar's 3rd spirit ring. Ma Hongjun let out a whistle. Dai Mubai's mouth twitched. There was finally some good news. Tang San loosened his clenched fists, moved his gaze away from Zyro Wu, looked at Zhao Wuji and nodded. Zhu Zhuqing still remained expressionless. Enning Rongrong clapped, but the applause wasn't very enthusiastic. her attention was still on Jai Yi. Zyro Wu finally raised her head, glanced at Tang San, then quickly lowered it again, twisting her fingers even tighter. Jai Yi stood in the formation, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Sure enough, the plot hadn't changed much. Oscar still broke through to the 30th rank at this time, Zhao Wuji still had this reaction, and the team was still these same people. He glanced at Oscar. Oscar wore a smile on his face, but his single eye kept glancing towards Ning Rongrong's direction, glancing over and over again. Ning Rongrong did not look at him. Ning Rongrong was looking at Jai Yi. Oscar's smile faded a bit, and he lowered his head, staring at the tips of his toes for a moment. Zhao Wuji, however, did not notice any of this. He turned around and walked towards the academy gate, waving his big hand. "Let's go Stardew Great Forest." The 7 people followed behind Zhao Wuji, walking out of Shrek Academy's crooked gate. Jai Yi walked at the very back of the formation, with Zyro Wu in front of him, and Tang San further ahead, occasionally looking back with a complex gaze. Ning Rongrong walked next to Zyro Wu, turning her head from time to look at Jai Yi. Zhu Zhuqing walked next to Ning Rongrong, looking straight ahead, but the frequency of her steps matched Jai Yi's. Ma Hongjun walked next to Dai Mubai, his mouth never stopping as he gossiped a bit. Dai Mubai ignored him. Oscar walked at the very front, following Zhao Wuji with light steps, but those eyes kept glancing backward. Jai Yi took all of this in, a faint smile lingering at the corners of his mouth. 3 days later. The periphery of the Stardew Great Forest. An inn stood solitarily by the official road, 2 stories high, built of wood and stone. A faded flag hung at the entrance with the words, "Welcome," written on it. The inn was not big, but in this remote place far from any village, it was already a rare resting spot. Zhao Wuji led the group and pushed open the door to go inside. Inside, the inn looked slightly more spacious than outside, with 7 or 8 tables set up. At the very back was a counter, behind which sat a scrawny old man who was lowering his head to use an abacus. Hearing the commotion, he raised his eyes to look for a moment, then lowered them again to continue clicking the beads. "Waiter, order food." Ma Hongjun sat down at a table by the window and casually placed his bundle on the table. "Bring a portion of every signature dish in your shop." "Dead fatty, it's not your money being spent, is it?" Dai Mubai directly slapped Ma Hongjun on the head. "Ahem, boss Dai, you aren't short of this little bit anyway, right?" Dai Mubai ignored him. Several people slumped haphazardly across the tables. After 3 days of forced march, running all the way from Soto City to the periphery of the Stardew Great Forest, everyone except Jai Yi was as tired as a dog. Oscar slumped in his chair, listlessly condensing a few sausages from his palms and handing one out to each person. "Eat up, while the food hasn't arrived yet. Eat some of my big recovery sausage to restore your stamina first." Tang San took it and took a bite. Zyro Wu also took one, but didn't eat much, holding it in her hands and squeezing it back and forth. It was quite small. Dai Mubai took the sausage and swallowed it in 2 or 3 bites, wiped his mouth, and his complexion improved slightly. Ma Hongjun had the ugliest eating manners, swallowing the whole sausage directly into his mouth and almost jamming his throat. Ning Rongrong ate in small bites, her eyes constantly glancing towards Jai Yi's side. Zhu Zhuqing had her eyes closed, not touching a single bite of the sausage in front of her. Jai Yi sat at the very edge of the table, and the sausage in front of him remained untouched as well. After 3 days of forced marching, the others were half dead from exhaustion, while he hadn't even broken a sweat. As for how he managed to do that, he could only say one sentence. Space folding 100 zhang in a single step. Right at this moment, the door of the inn was kicked open with a single kick. With a bang, the door panel slammed against the wall, rebounded, and was blocked by a hand. A tall boy wearing a dark red uniform walked in, his chin held high, his eyes up in the sky, finding fault with everything he saw. Behind him followed a team of people in the same uniform. 7 people, 4 men and 3 women, plus a middle-aged man wearing monocle glasses. Kanghui Academy. The tall one walking at the very front deliberately bumped into a waiter who was serving dishes. The waiter was holding a plate of food in his hands, staggered from the bump, lost his grip on the vegetable plate, and fell sideways. The waiter turned pale with fright. But the next second, a hand steadily supported his shoulder, and the other hand caught the plate before it hit the ground. Jai had stood up at some unknown point, supporting the waiter's shoulder with his left hand, and holding the dish tray with his right hand, not a single drop of soup in the plate spilling. "Be careful," Jai's voice wasn't loud, and his tone was calm. The waiter was stunned, turned his head to see the person supporting him, and opened his mouth. Thank you, young master." The waiter took back the dish plate, his hands still shaking, unsure whether it was from fright or some other reason. The inn fell quiet for an instant. The gazes of those female students from Kanghui Academy all fell on Jai Yi. One of the girls with a ponytail dropped one of her chopsticks, bent down to pick it up, and after picking it up, her eyes glued right back on him. Another short-haired girl rested her elbows on the table, cupped her chin with both hands, and stared straight at Jai Yi with an indescribable, mysterious smile at the corners of her mouth. The innermost girl turned her head directly, stared for several seconds before turning back, and said something to her companion next to her. The two of them started laughing together, their eyes still glancing towards Jai Yi while laughing. As for the male students of Kanghui Academy, they let out cold snorts. Dai Mubai took all of this in, his fists clenching so hard they made cracking sounds. Damn it, he stole the spotlight again. Seeing the female students from his own academy looking at Jai Yi, that tall boy's expression turned very ugly. He let out a cold snort, deliberately pulled back his chair, the chair legs scraping harshly against the floor, then plopped down into it, crossed his legs and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Boss, order food." Ma Hongjian's eyes lit up first. He stared fixedly at a female student on Kanghui Academy's side, his eyes glazing over. That girl indeed looked quite good, with an oval face, big eyes, an exquisite figure with well-defined curves, and long hair draped over her shoulders. She was talking and laughing with her companion beside her, revealing a row of neat white teeth when she smiled. Drool flowed from the corner of Ma Hongjian's mouth, and he didn't even notice it himself. Chapter 24, Dai Mubai and the others thrashed by Kanghui Academy, Second Spirit, Time. Boss Dai, Ma Hongjian nudged Dai Mubai beside him with his elbow, his eyes still glued to that girl, his voice kept very low. "That chick looks pretty nice." Dai Mubai followed his gaze, cast a glance, and curled his lips in disdain. "From Kanghui Academy." His voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet inn, everyone heard it loud and clear. "What's wrong with Kanghui Academy?" Ma Hongjian was still giggling foolishly. Dai Mubai's voice raised a bit, carrying an innate sense of superiority in his tone. "It's just tiny Kanghui Academy, what the hell are they acting so cocky for?" These words were like throwing a stone into a cesspool. Over on Kanghui Academy's side, all 7 people changed color at the same time. A tall student stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over backward with a loud crash. Several people beside him also stood up, their fists cracking loudly, their eyes each looking more hostile than the last. One of the solidly built male students rounded the table and strode directly over toward Dai Mubai. On the way, he spotted the waiter serving food. A sinister plan instantly formed in his mind. As the waiter passed beside Jai Yi, he rammed right into him. Carrying a large bowl full of hot soup, the waiter was hit and pitched forward, sending the bowl flying as the scalding soup arced through the air, splashing toward Jai Yi. Jai Yi didn't even bat an eye. His hand moved, so fast that no one present saw it clearly. His left hand reached out, grabbing the waiter's collar and yanking him back. His right hand traced half an arc in the air, his 5 fingers spreading out as a transparent spatial barrier instantly condensed into shape. The scalding soup struck the barrier as if hitting an invisible wall, with not a single drop splashing out. The soup flowed down along the spatial barrier and back into the soup bowl. The inn became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The sturdy student from Kanghui Academy stood frozen in place, his mouth agape and his eyes wide as copper bells. The tall student from Kanghui Academy's expression changed, but he refused to back down verbally. "You've got some skill." Dai Mubai slammed the table and stood up. Do you people from Kanghui Academy walk around without eyes? Say that again. The tall guy took 2 steps forward, and all 7 people from Kanghui Academy stood up, 4 males and 3 females, glaring aggressively at the Shrek side. Dai Mubai didn't back down. He stood tall and stepped forward 2 paces. What if I say it? Ma Hongzhen also stood up and followed behind him, while Oscar hesitated before following as well. Tang San didn't move. He was looking at Jai Yi. Jai Yi dispelled the spatial barrier, turned back around and sat in his chair, picking up his teacup for a sip, his facial expression unchanging throughout. On Dai Mubai's side, the tall guy's lips twitched, forming a punchable smirk. Fine, you've got guts. Outside the door, a spirit master duel, do you dare? Scared of you, Dai Mubai raised his chin, turned around and walked toward the entrance. Ma Hongzhen followed him, and after hesitating for 2 seconds, Oscar followed as well. Tang San stood where he was, looked at Jai Yi, then looked at Zyro Wu, grit his teeth, and followed behind Oscar. The 4 guys walked outside. The people from Kanghui Academy all followed them out in a rush, and as the inn door closed, the room fell silent. Jai Yi raised his teacup, took a slow sip, and showed no intention of moving. Aren't we going? Jai Yi shook his head. No rush. Enning Rongrong glanced at him, hesitated briefly, then dragged a chair over to sit beside him, not moving either. Zhu Zhuqing looked toward the doorway, and also chose to sit back down in her original spot. She wasn't going either. Zyro Wu stood where she was with her head lowered, wringing her hands until her knuckles turned white. She looked toward the door. Tang San was already outside. She looked at Jai Yi again. Jai Yi wasn't looking at her, sipping his tea, but that invisible pressure weighed on her like a mountain. She bit her lip and slowly walked back beside Jai Yi, sitting down. Sounds of fighting came from outside the inn, mixed with Dai Mubai's angry roars and Ma Hongzhen's miserable screams. Zyro Wu's hand holding her teacup paused slightly, but she still didn't move. The sounds of fighting lasted for less than the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, before turning into one-sided wails. A cup of tea later, the door of the inn was pushed open. The people from Kanghui Academy stood there, doubled over in laughter. The tall guy stepped on Dai Mubai's face, mocking him. This is the strength of Shrek Academy. You didn't even touch a hair on us, tusk, tusk, tusk. Dai Mubai's face was pressed against the muddy ground, emitting low roars from his throat, but his body could no longer push himself up. The tall guy looked down at him with a triumphant smirk on his lips, then spat a glob of phlegm onto Dai Mubai's face with a chewy. Dai Mubai's body trembled violently, his fists clenching so tightly they cracked, but he couldn't climb up. The people from Kanghui Academy walked in, boisterously laughing. The eyes they cast at Jai Yi's group of 4 were filled with ridicule. Their expressions clearly called them cowards. Dai Mubai lay on the ground, unmoving. Ma Hongzhen squatted beside him, nose still bleeding, not knowing what to say. Oscar stood to one side, completely at a loss. Tang San frowned and walked over, wanting to help Dai Mubai up, but Dai Mubai slapped his hand away. Dai Mubai climbed up from the ground and wiped the spit off his face with his sleeve, his eyes bloodshot. He turned around and saw that inside the inn, Jai Yi sat at the table holding his teacup, quietly drinking tea and staring at him. Enning Rongrong sat beside him, Zhu Zhuqing sat beside him as well, and Zyro Wu sat opposite him. The 4 of them had not stepped outside from start to finish. Yet they were watching him. All 4 of them were watching him. Watching him get stepped on underfoot, watching spit get thrown on his face, watching him lie on the ground like a dead dog. Dai Mubai's mind exploded with a loud buzz. Jai Yi. Like a maddened beast with blood-red eyes, spirit power surged frantically around his body as 3 spirit rings lit up, and a cluster of blinding white light condensed in his right hand. White tiger light wave. He blasted it directly toward Jai Yi. Carrying a sharp whistling sound of tearing air, and wrapped in all of Dai Mubai's rage and humiliation, the white tiger light wave slammed toward Jai Yi's face like a cannonball. Jai Yi set down his teacup. Second spirit, time, activate. Within a radius of 50 zhang, everything stood still. Daimubai's white tiger light wave froze in midair like a frozen meteor, its white light solidified and no longer flowing. Ma Hongjun's hand wiping his nosebleed stopped in midair, a drop of blood suspended at his fingertip, neither dripping nor falling. Oscar stood with his mouth open, a word stuck in his throat, unable to utter it. Tang San's hand, stretched out to stop Daimubai, stopped in midair with his fingers slightly parted. Enning Rongrong's half-blinked eyes froze. Zhu Zhuking's action of turning her head froze halfway. Zyro Wu raising her head froze halfway. The entire inn transformed into a giant piece of amber, with everyone frozen inside. Except Jai Yi. He stood up, his chair making no sound. He rounded the table and stepped toward Daimubai step by step, his footsteps light and silent against the wooden floorboards. Chapter 25 Release Speech. Thank you to all the readers who have supported me until now. Aside from the first 3 days, this book's performance has consistently been less than ideal, and today it even dropped off the new book rankings. However, since the word count has reached the requirement for release, I have decided to go ahead with it. There are too many comments in the review section, and there are some negative ones as well. The author will explain them one by one here. 1. The first spirit, void, spatial materialization, does not mean it is inherently a sword. For example, Ling Luochen from Douluo II has the ice element for her spirit, but its form has always been an ice staff. Similarly, void is the same. 2. Regarding the heroines, it is a harem. Many readers do not like the people from Shrek to be heroines, so the current direction is just for fun. The true heroines are actually Kaien Renxu, Guyuina, Ice Empress. 3. Putting oneself in the perspective of a person undergoing transmigration. Would you prefer boring Cultivate, or showing off in front of the original protagonist group? 4. The plot of Lion Douluo battling Tang Hao has already been modified. The ending is a draw. Tang Hao's injuries are heavier, but he puts on an appearance of being fine, and Lion Douluo is frightened away. 5. As for why Zyro Wu and Tang San want to stay at Shrek Academy, it is mainly to avoid deviating too much from the plot. Moreover, Tang Hao's side will attract the attention of Spirit Hall, and this plot hole will be filled later. 6. The protagonist's first spirit ring relied on his own innate level 20 spirit power to beat a 1,000-year spirit beast to death. Controlling space to break defense and time standstill is very reasonable. 7. Flender placing Jai Yi under house arrest for 6 years does not mean he was locked up the whole time. It just means he was not allowed to leave Flender's field of vision. 8. As for why Tang Hao could still break through to rank 95 after being decadent for 6 years, you will have to ask Tang Clan Sun Shao about that. 9. The buddy who likes Kaoxingxiang, tell me your name, and I will arrange it for you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to Infinite Novel Audio. 10. Also regarding age, it is more or less about right and doesn't have much of an impact. There are too many, making it hard to remember so clearly. For the rest of what you want to ask, please continue leaving messages, and I will reply as soon as I see them. This book will be released tonight, and I hope everyone will continue following and reading updates. I already have a rough idea for the subsequent plot, so read with peace of mind. Finally, thank you to those readers who have supported me all along. There are too many names, so I won't write them out one by one. Those good brothers whose comments I have all replied to.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to Infinite Novel Audio, and don't forget to check out AI Otaku Studio for more amazing content. See you in the next adventure.